Heavy breathing has started. Yeah.
Don't think it's me.
All right, so we're pressing the button. We're waiting
Darth
for the
Vader.
light to go green. All right, the light is green.
And this is the part
We're
where we
pressing
apologize
the
for
button. All right, so CoCoTALK episode 92 at its new time slot is going live in 3, 2, 1.
Hi, this is Dale Lear, designer of TRS-80 Color Baseball, and you're listening to CoCoTALK.
This is CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color computer. With your host, Mr. Can't Get Past Level 1 in any game, Stevie Stroh. All right, we're here. We're live. We're doing it live. It's Saturday Night Live. CoCoTALK is live at a new special time. Russell Flowers is here. We got all kinds of people here with us today. So we've got a jam-packed panel. So just to remind everybody, for those who are not aware, CoCoTALK is live. Every Saturday we are live. We are the world's leading, not to mention the world's only live weekly talk show featuring the Tandy Color computer. So I'll say it again. We're live. We're on the air. It's Saturday night. This is a brand new time slot for doing the main show, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today is January the 19th. The year is 2019 and the year of our Lord. And we have got all kinds of people in the panel. We've got all kinds of people in the live chat. So let's go around the room and let's say howdy, ho there to the people that are with us. On the top left in the clockwise fashion, we will start with, and I love how Rob Inman introduced him last week because there's so many games to choose from. But last week it was Warp Fighter 3D, which will continue again. But Mr. Steve Bjork is in the house. Hello, Steve.
Hey, how's everybody doing out there?
We're doing good. It's past my bedtime, it seems like. We have from old Canada, L. Curtis Boyle's with us. How's it going, eh?
Hello, everyone. I'm just waiting for Steve's food coma to kick in, and he'll nod off at the beginning.
I haven't had dinner quite some time ago. I'm on my first beer, so you might be an alcohol coma that kicks in here. So, I believe he's somewhere in Minnesota, but I'm not exactly sure. But legendary game designer Rick Adams is with us. Hello, Rick.
only a legend in his own mind. Thank you. Thank you. You're too kind.
Yes, you are. Yes, we are. We have the celebrity interview wrangler, Mr. A-lister himself. Ron Delvaux is with us.
Hello, everyone. How's it all going?
Ron. We're doing quite well. Thank you for being here. We have from Strongware, maker of hardware, software, 3D printed products, and so much more. Mr. John Strong is in the house. Hello, John.
Hello.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. We have from somewhere outside of his kitchen. There is no Apple II in the background, so we don't recognize him. Looks like he's got a haircut and everything. So Mr. Mark O is with us. Mark Overholzer, how are you?
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. And we don't get to see this guy on camera very often, but Al Hartman's with us from Al's Computer Place on Facebook. How are you, Al?
Okay. I'm a facsimile of my normal self.
All right. Well, you're looking quite handsome, sir. So thanks for being here and definitely raising the bar on the beauty of the show this evening. Speaking of beauty, from somewhere in California, Mikey is here. Michael Furman, how you doing there, gorgeous?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm going to be batching it for the next 4 weeks, so I'm going to be tearing this place apart.
Oh, the remodeling?
No. I'm going to be tearing CoCoTALK apart.
Oh, you're going to be tearing CoCoTALK apart. All right, good. We could use a little tearing apart.
Little DEF CON.
Okay, a little DEF CONing, huh?
Yep.
We've got another Canadian with us, creator of Forest of Doom, the revolutionary innovator of CoCo Forever, the epic mini-series, drama, saga, mixed media, augmented reality, three-dimensional smell-o-vision experience. Mr. D. Bruce Moore is in the house. How are you, Bruce?
I'm well. I'm just trying to stay warm. I've not left my house in 72 hours. Just tell me when the weather lets up.
All right, well, Richard Lorbieski's got a fire right underneath you to warm you up there. So there you go. We've got coming to the show. He's not here quite as often as we'd like, but he's here, and he's wearing an awesome shirt that says, "I'm a Coco Nut." Mr. Jason Downs is in the house. How are you, Jason?
Good, thanks.
A man with a very brief introduction, and I'll just try to prolong it as long as possible. But as seen at PenFest 99 and 2000, at CorksCon, Hamvention, at CoCoFest, maker of the Switcheroo, maker of the Wallaby Cable, star of the Coco Forever audio drama, and so much more. Jason, the Coco Man Reichert, is with us today.
And you mean by star, you mean like minor cameo appearance. Yeah.
Yes.
I'd say more like a black hole.
Didn't he also win the Coco Forever mug?
Oh, yeah, winner of the Mug of Douchery as well. We have to add that to the title.
Oh, yes, the Forest of Doom mug. Which,
yes, oh, yes.
Yeah. There's a Coco Forever mug. I didn't know about it.
Ah. Oh, yeah, that's right. For the Forest of Doom mug. Yes. You're too kind.
As seen live, you know.
Yeah, all over the place.
As you rage quit for like the 5th time.
The internet's own Jason Reichert is with us here today. Brother, best known as the brother of Ken Reichert.
Since when?
The starter of Dumpster Fires Large and Small, and now it's erupted into a bonfire from Boyson Technologies. Mr. Richard Lorbieski is with us this evening. Good evening, Richard.
Good evening. How are you doing?
We're doing just fine.
Yay.
Maker of too many software programs to even remember, but Digger 3 is one of the newest products on here. Chet Simpson, all the way from Vegas. What's going on, Chet?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Not bad. And last but not least, first time, long time, Dan Loyle's with us. Hey, Dan, how are you?
Good. Just want to say hi to everyone. Sorry, I'll try to figure out how to get Zoom working next time so I get my picture up there.
There you go. All right. Well, thanks for being here. And we got 25 people. The show has just started. There are 26 people now in the live chat. Retro Innovations was trolling early before the show even started. Retro Innovations is saying we're so glad to see that there's not going to be a show today. But apparently it is. We're here. Nick Marotta is here. Varick Creek is here. Russell Flowers is here. Curtis Boyle, Nick Marotta, Perry is here. Matchy Games is here. Rob Inman, our announcer from last week, is here. Rob joined on the call. Russell Flowers. Chris Cromwell is here. Nick Marotta is here. Russell Flowers. Matchy Games. People are waving at everybody. Mark's saying hi. Rob Inman's here. Hello to the 26 people who are here with us live so far. So for the start of the show, I think we've got some good numbers. These are daytime numbers at night, so that's good. And we got a good panel. Welcome everybody. I would just like to start by saying I want to thank all of you for doing just a fantastic job last week on the show. It was a great team effort between Rob and Curtis and Nick Marentes had a nice segment, and Chet Simpson had a nice segment for us, and the news was great, and everybody just kind of like gelled, right? Everybody just picked up a piece of the show and just carried it, and it was all just kind of organic and biological and smooth and all kinds of stuff, and it was great to be able to be an audience member and to kind of listen to you guys live. I just had my headphone on, I was listening to you guys. I'm in the living room playing on my Xbox, listening to the show, and it was good times, man. So great job, everybody. I really enjoyed it, and thank you so much.
I like how you worded it as picking up the pieces, but yep.
You are welcome.
Yeah, it was really good. It was a good show. So it's good times. And so last week we talked about this, and we're doing this, and we're going to see how this goes. But after we did our After Dark, I don't know if we did it during dark or after dark or in the twilight hours or at dusk or dawn, at some time, we talked about let's try changing the time slot for this next week's show, and let's see what happens. Because who joined us? We had a few people join us last week that don't usually join us, like Brian Schubring, the Music Man, joined us. We had a couple people join us that just don't always get a chance to join us during the day, and people have things to do during the day, which I understand. Nick Marentes. Nick Marentes was on earlier, Rob. Rob's asking where Nick Marentes is. And Nick, because it's Sunday afternoon for Nick right now, and he had lunch plans today. So,
but he has some stuff he's going to show off next week.
Okay. Russell Flower says he's hearing echo. Do we know? Can anybody listen to the stream real quick and tell me if you're hearing echo?
What's Echo's last name?
More reverb.
Okay, no. Russell says, now never mind. I had two windows open. Okay, Russell. Thanks for.
I didn't hear it.
Ken Reichert is here, best known as the brother of Jason Reichert. Yes, but no, Ken Reichert is here. He says, I don't hear an echo. All right. So, so we said let's see it. We're up to 28 live viewers right now.
So we owe 28 apologies.
Now,
are two of those the same person who said it was echoing, though?
Varick Creek is saying, can I get a shout out? I've already mentioned your name, Varick. So Varick is a friend who watches me play some video games live and stuff, but he's here. And he says, can I get a shout out? You guys want to shout out Varick Creek? Anybody else want to say the name besides me?
Varick Creek.
Crick, there you go.
It just doesn't roll off the tongue.
Doesn't roll off the tongue. It's not quite as fluent as Nick Marotta. Hey, Dan Loyle.
Yeah.
Can we put you on the spot?
Sure.
Can we play This Is Your Life?
I can give you a quick little history.
Yeah, and I just want to let everybody know, because I have a few things to show off that Dan has given me. But Dan has generously donated many products over the years to the cause. So Dan has sent in a number of items, and one of them was a Raspberry Pi disc for me to play on with the Retro Pi. He sent in the really cool Raspberry Pi thing for Megan and I to play on, that little wooden kit with the electronics and stuff. And I got a couple other things to show off, which I'll be showing today. And thank you for doing that, Dan. Like, now I can kind of thank you firsthand in person. I can let me actually play a sound clip for you here.
Thank you. Yes, you're too kind, and thank you.
Yes. So, tell us a little bit about your past, your present, and your future, as far as, your retro things you did when retro was new, and what are you doing these days and stuff like that.
Okay, well, don't laugh, but my first computer was a VIC-20 back in junior high, and I didn't get the Coleco Atom like I wanted. I had a Coleco. I had a 16K memory expansion card that my dad's buddy modded so we could play cartridge games by changing the memory address to load at different registers or addresses, and then load the cartridge games from disk or tape. So I guess that was the beginning of my software piracy career.
You do know that you have a number of software developers that are on this call?
Yeah, that's right.
And you can imagine our feelings about piracy.
But it's VIC-20 software. It doesn't even count.
Yeah. Just let him hang himself. It's fine.
Throw him on the dumpster fire there.
And we upgraded to the Commodore 64 a couple years later. So then in 1987 was my first computer-related job. I was going to community college. I worked at Apple Puget Sound Program Library Exchange, or Call Apple. And I worked part-time running their high-capacity disk duplicator and assembling Macintosh developer software packages. And we used PageMaker and the Apple Laser Writer to print out the disk labels, and got to use Apple Lisa that was converted to run Mac software. And we also carried some Apple II software and ran a BBS on an Apple II. And they had a small retail store, and I saw the first color Mac II come out in '87. And then we jumped forward to like 2005. I started collecting 8-bit and 16-bit machines from thrift stores and Craigslist I never had a chance to play with. So I got some Apple IIs, Macs, Atari, 8-bit, and ST, and Amicas, and TI. I got a TRS-80 Model 3, same one that I had in high school in my computer science class. Still have that one.
What do you think? What do you think that, since you've been collecting retro before retro collecting became cool, back in 2005? What was it like buying those 8-bit machines then versus 13 years later, 14 years later?
I was getting some for free. People gave me like an original Mac 128.
Wow, free!
I'd see a thing on Craigslist. It's like it's sitting on my lawn by the front door.
Yeah. That's cool.
I picked up a Color Computer 2 with 64K and some disk drives at a computer recycle place, REPC, after I first ran across Sockmaster's website for Donkey Kong. I had to see that, but I never took the time to figure out how to do anything with my Color Computer 2. So then around 2016, I found it came out with Donkey Kong Remix.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to play that. So I got a CoCo 3 with 128K and tried to upgrade it to 512K. Got a Triad board and a Super Expectro from Mark at Cloud9. Ended up breaking my CoCo 3 when I scratched the motherboard.
Ouch.
Yeah. So I had to get another CoCo 3 that came with an old 512K board. Got a CoCo SDC card and found Nick's Popstar Pilot page in his game collection and saw all these other cool programs that were out there for the Color Computer, and ran into Brendan Donahue. Ran into him at VCF West in Seattle last year, and he installed the CoCo VGA. And
oh, neat! Board. I still want one of those. Yeah.
So yeah, I was lucky that my CoCo 2 is the right model that took the version that he had for that. So I haven't done too much with it or done any programming, but I've got the USB blaster thing. I need to upgrade the firmware on that one.
No MC10?
No, never got an MC10. I saw one.
Don't bother.
Yeah.
You might have a door you need to pry open. So
I saw one at the Seattle Computer Museum in their extra parts area. I think it took a picture of their CoCo stuff. And I got to give a shout out to Richard for fixing my broken CoCo 3 and installing the 6309 and Boomerang E2 board.
Yay.
Richard's awesome. He fixes everything I break.
and Jim fixes everything that Richard breaks. So
yeah.
It's the circle of life.
Yeah.
My other love probably is my Atari 130XE, and Richard upgraded my video with the Ultimate Atari video board in that. I've got a couple SD card readers so I can play the Atari ROMs.
Neat. So, yeah, I need to get one of those. I just got that power cord you sent me just came in today too. So
I couldn't remember what you had. Did you have an
800 XL? I think is what I have. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any the Uno cart or the?
I don't have anything for it because I've never been able to plug it in or turn it on or anything. So
okay.
So now I can turn it on. So now I got to go to phase 2, find software. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So my last things I acquired was the Super Expectro board from Mark. He's still updating that to work with the Gimme 86 timing. So since I didn't have a VGA board, I end up using the CoCo 3 video mating cable from Cloud9 to the 15-pin VGA and found a 15 kilohertz analog RGB monitor that worked directly from the RGB connection. So I've got an NEC AccuSync LCD monitor that works great.
Richard, were you selling those, or did you come across those when we were at Tandy Assembly? I remember you had something like that.
Yeah, I had a few of them, but they're gone.
Yeah.
I just have one left that I personally use.
Yeah, that's nice when you can do that with that just straight through cable like that.
Yeah, I couldn't get any of my CRT Commodore or Atari monitors to work with the horizontal and vertical sync signals. I never could come across a CM8 monitor either around here.
What was your first love when it came to computers? You said VIC-20 you started with, but are you most nostalgic for the VIC-20, or has anything become your favorite system?
I'd probably say the CoCo and then the Atari.
Okay.
Those are the two that I use the most.
Cool. So you've had a pretty cool history on computers, and you've been collecting for a long time. I'm a little bit new to the game, so that's cool.
I ran across your YouTube videos playing the CoCo games, and that's how I got hooked up with the community.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here, and thanks for all the contributions over the years. Certainly appreciate that. Yeah, cool. All right, so let's go over anybody. Hey, Tom C has just joined us there. There you go, Tom C. And product updates, project updates, acquisitions, anything like that. I believe Mark Overholzer said he has a little something to share with us.
Oh, just real tiny. It's actually tied in with Mikey stuff. Basically, William Zambati, I guess it is porting basically VCC, so it's not dependent upon Windows, DirectX, and Visual Studio. And so Mikey had grabbed a snapshot of the source code and had adjusted it for the Mac, which he'll tell you about shortly. But I was having problems getting it to build on my Ubuntu system, and he helped me last night. We got it figured out. So I now have it building. It's got a few issues still, but we're making progress here.
Okay. Now, are the issues just in the building of it, or are there issues with once it's built, like running issues or compatibility issues?
There was, and yes. So
okay.
Yeah, the build I got it to actually build, but it doesn't. When I compare it against the one that Walter actually built, they don't work the same. So
okay.
There's actually a video. I made it a OVCC section on Discord, and there's actually a video in the bottom there that you can look at. So.
Okay. Has anybody, and I know Mikey's working with it, but has anybody gotten it to build and run? Is it running for you now, Mark?
Oh, yeah, it's running, but it's not running correctly with Popstar Pilot. So, I mean, it's running worse than VCC did, Popstar Pilot.
Okay, now is that just because of the state of where it is right now, because it's in a state of flux, or do you think maybe something didn't compile just right when you...
I think it's
a timing bug.
Yeah, it could be. But I mean,
Popstar's fussy on timing, and the original VCC has a problem with Popstar too. So.
Well, the version that Walter compiled looks a lot like the original VCC. I mean, if I run the VCC under Wine on Linux, but Mikey's version's got something weird else with it. One thing about it, we're using a different compiler. We're using the C-Lang instead of GCC, so there could be something with that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's running enough that I can boot EOU 6809 fine, and
that's good. And you're running on the Mac.
6309 does crash though. But the VCC has problems with the 609 in its original form as well. So I'm hoping Walter, once he gets the other things fixed up, there's a bug list. I think I posted 4 known bugs that I know of in the original VCC that hopefully he can fix while he's doing the support for cross-platform.
That'd be nice.
Cool.
And maybe some of the rest of us can work on that too. Those bugs.
Yeah. And so maybe to kind of segue from there, because you guys did talk about this last week, how Mikey is handling the Mac OS port of OVCC, and so what does the O stand for? Is it what's the new graphics library called?
Oh, I think open. O just means open. I think.
Oh, just open.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what is it? SDL? Is that what it's called? The graphics library that it uses?
Yeah.
SDL. Okay, so Otis means Open VCC. So this is the open source cross-platform version of that. And what's his name is Walter
Zambati.
Zambati is the one who's kind of running this project right now. And so Walter is handling the Windows binary and the Linux binary distributions.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mikey is handling the Mac OS distribution, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then anything you want to just maybe encapsulate for us, Mikey, on the state of the emulator and your distribution of it or anything?
Yeah, so I think it was like the weekend after the holidays. I had seen that Walter had posted the source code for OVCC. So I was like, great. If that thing runs on Linux, I should be able to get it to build on Mac OS. And sure enough, it actually wasn't really very, very challenging to do a build. And then once I got the build and I got all the modules like MPI and FD502 and hard disk and all those other, on Windows they're DLLs, but on Linux they're called .so for a shared object file.
Okay.
Mac they're even called something different called a .dylib, but it's the same idea. It's just a loadable library module. That all works. I built all that and pretty much worked the first time. And then for a Mac, the way that you give that applications work is they're actually there's just a folder. and the folder has a certain directory structure, has a configuration file, a couple other, the binary, the actual executable has to go in a particular place, and there's a place where you put all the resources, like the
that's the application bundle, like I think they call it, right?
Yeah. So I just looked up online real quick how to do that, and I threw together ovcc.app. So
okay, cool.
And I gave it to Curtis Boyle, and I think forget the other guy's name. Couple guys tried it, and they said, yeah, it works. So
okay. Now the app itself is working, but are there any? It sounds like there's a timing issue just in the emulation right now. Is that kind of what your theory is?
Yeah. So we've both, mostly I think people are encountering, they're encountering both bugs that already have existed in the 2.0.1b version of VCC. The PubStore pilot timing issue is one. 6309 not completely working is one. There's a couple other bugs. Those are in the 2.0.1b version that everybody Windows version already.
So these aren't new bugs; these are existing bugs.
Well, right. So people are hitting existing bugs, and Walter did a lot of work to actually get it to compile on Linux, and also with SDO2. So there are also new bugs that people are hitting.
New and improved bugs.
There's some of both.
Okay.
Just to make it exciting.
Yeah.
So we have old bugs and new bugs.
Yeah. So sometimes it's a little hard to say whether the issue somebody's hitting is an old bug or a new bug, but I'm pretty sure that Mark's issue is probably one of the old bugs, because I know when I run it on my Mac, it has some timing issues as well, with the I think it has to do with the scrolling, but yeah, so there's all those things going on.
Okay.
And I'm perfectly happy to sit down with people on Discord, and I walked Mark actually how to debug some of these issues, and how to fix them, and I can do the Linux and Mac builds. So
cool. So that's cool. So it's progress, though. So in the fact that it's being currently worked on, which it has not been in quite some time, and it's moving forward. So there's a lot of under the hood changes going on. As you mentioned, there's a new graphics routine. It's not using whatever Microsoft had, DirectX or whatever. Right. So it's using a kind of cross-platform graphics engine, and so probably some code tweaks, like you say, so it can compile on different operating systems. But yeah, so these are growing pains, but the fact it's growing is good because it's been stale for a long time.
Have one more comment. I have been in contact with some of the people who are maintaining the the real VCC, the regular one, and we've been having some discussions about that. I probably shouldn't say that much more about it, but
okay.
I feel pretty strongly that I don't want there to be a divergence in VCC where there are two versions that are going different directions.
Yes, I would agree with that.
I'll just put it that way. So that's something that's being discussed. If you guys are thinking, oh, VCC is going a completely different direction, that's something that's on everybody's mind. So should be nice to Walter, I think, and everything will be okay.
Yeah, I think the direction it's going in is forward, because the direction it's been going in has been stop for a long time. So and I'm just gonna say it here. Anybody who's got a problem with that, you come see me. All right, send them my way, Mikey. I'll take care of it. Okay. So I'll give them some of my free opinions on what they should be concerned with in life, and it's not this. All right, so
I've noticed a few changes and differences between the original. Like we originally running Wine one of all that had to run the whole Wine emulation subsystem, so it took a ton of memory on the Mac to launch it, and the new one just launches dirt quick because it doesn't have to do all that. When it hits illegal 639 instructions, the original VCC running under Wine would pop up a little, black and white console window that would report some errors like this is unsupported, this is unsupported. Whereas the current build here, at least the few times I've hit it, you try to do hardware divide instructions, it actually literally crashed and just exited right out. So that's handling some errors a little bit differently. On the other hand, it's got some improvements too. Like if I remember, the original VCC basically let you adjust the CPU clock speed up to 89 megahertz. And the new one is actually going over 500 megahertz as your maximum speed now. And it actually
nice.
So it's lickety fast. So there's some improvements already showing up in there too. And I've thrown on the list a few of the bugs that I know of, like some palette settings are wrong, and that's some of the other things that Mikey already talked about. So,
as they would say in Boston, it's wicked fast.
Yeah,
wicked fast.
Wicked fast. It's wicked evil. Yeah.
One thing I might add is a lot of people who discover the CoCo still around will probably get the emulator first, and then being able to use it and have it work and get them excited is probably going to be a really cool thing.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. MAME is way more full featured, but it takes a whole heck of a lot more to set up. I mean, VCC as it is just,
VCC is almost plug and play, and MAME is like, learn the command line.
Yep. It's the ease of use version of VCC.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Very, very cool. Well, Mikey, thanks for working on it. And we need. I'm in favor of this project moving forward. And the first emulator I played with was VCC only because, as you guys mentioned, ease of use, right? So I didn't understand the fact that you needed to have ROMs in the folder of the thing, and stuff like that. So a lot of my early CoCo videos were on VCC, and I think it was Curtis that pointed out, dude, what are you using? Because those artifacts look really bad. So the one downside of VCC is that it doesn't artifact well. So hopefully that's something that would be on a future update. But you gotta pick your battles and prioritize what's going on.
If we get a multi-platform, then there's a very high likely that somebody else will step up and help with that.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the reasons I think MAME has gotten so successful, because it's got the better artifacting. It's got the full 6 emulation, emulates more hardware add-ons and stuff too, is because it is cross-platform and you can share bits between, like you could say, or share the Game Master cartridge sound chip driver with some other stuff that uses that driver as well. So it definitely works a lot more for getting more encouragement of developers getting involved with it. But it's much harder to set up than VCC. So this is definitely like an easy-to-use project, and it's making good progress. VCC, as it was basically set up for Windows, and if you wanted to run it under Linux, or if you wanted to run it under Mac, you'd have to set up Wine and everything else to run that too. So you had to do extra setup on top of it. So it's kind of getting into MAME territory again. So this greatly solves that.
Absolutely.
On MAME, Chet is able to use contributions to other emulators to update the CoCo. He was working on the sound capabilities and implementing some of the sound cards by using software written for some of the other emulators.
Yeah, I actually took the SN chip code from MAME and moved it over to VCC, and it was actually very easy to do. Going in that direction, I think it took an afternoon to get something up and running, and then another day to get everything polished up. It was pretty easy to get up and done.
Hey, real quick, I want to say hi to a friend of mine who just joined us, Matt Taylor. What's going on, dude?
What's going on, man?
How you doing, brother?
Doing all right.
Where are you? Where are you?
I'm in Fort Rucker, Alabama right now.
Are you still enlisted?
No, sir. I am an officer.
Oh, I mean, are you still in the military, I should say?
He's an officer.
Absolutely. I fly helicopters now.
Oh man. So just so you guys know, Matt used to live upstairs from me in an apartment years and years ago. I think my oldest daughter, Madison, was maybe 3 or 4 at the time. Matt was about 14 at the time. How old are you now, Matt?
I'm 30.
Okay, so it's been 16 years if you do the math. So cool. What's been going on, dude?
Yeah, well, not much. Just trying to figure some stuff out on the computer, get a couple things working. But I saw the invite for the show and figured I'd jump on and see what's up.
We're talking old computers, man.
Hey, interesting stuff.
So, do you have a helicopter emulator?
Helicopter. All right. Well, that's my setup. Throttle inputs, cyclic, pedals. Kind of a nerd. Yeah. Got an entire room dedicated to Star Wars. Pretty much every other kind of science fiction I've ever been into.
Cool, man. Glad you could join us, dude.
If you're looking for help, this is the wrong place.
This is
sarcasm, on the other hand.
Yeah, this is Old Guys Anonymous tonight. So yeah.
Depending what kind of help you want.
Yeah.
If it's either to get over your dependency, no help here.
Yeah. So cool, man. Thanks for joining us, dude. Feel free to chime in at any time. John Strong, you mentioned you had some updates. You've been showing us some of your future joystick designs that you've been working on.
Well, just some prototyping, design work and things, and I just thought I'd follow up a little bit with it. And I've got the analog stick down to about this size.
Oh, wow.
Here.
Neat.
Okay. I've got to see how, I'm going to get it to screw together properly and everything. But yeah,
turn it where we can see the stick. Turn it where we can see the stick pointing up. Okay. Now that's 360 degree analog.
Yeah.
And that's loosey goosey like a Black Beauty. There's no spring loaded or centering there.
Exactly.
So this is a new and improved Black Beauty you're working on there.
Dual button Black Beauty.
Dual button Black Beauty.
Okay. So
that looks cool.
It's some just experimentation and things to do that. Waiting for some switches yet to come in. While waiting on the switches, kind of stopped and went through and pulled out some old projects.
That's an itty bitty stick.
Yeah. And so
that's what she said.
Okay, I thought this wasn't the AFterDARK
version. That's why we don't have ladies here.
Yeah.
That's why we can't have nice things. So.
Well, I wanted to address real quickly. We was asked a show or so ago about the 3D printers and such and the differences. These two pieces were printed from the same size file, circle in the center. Okay. In the CAD file. They were printed with different software that sliced them. And that hole is totally a different size.
Yeah.
This is the compatibility problems with across the different ones. This software, what this setting does to it. But, basically I have to go through, do the settings, and then, okay, what did my software do to it on top of what I told it to do?
Wow.
Hey, John, was that mini joystick the MC10 version?
Nope. Okay, and that's where my paddle, just working a little bit on it.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay.
And these are all, you're 3D printing all of these yourself, right?
Yeah. And this is where I'm at so far with the thumbstick.
Okay. Cool. That looks like a PlayStation or Xbox style thumbstick there. Yeah, that looks cool. That's neat.
And so just trying to see what it takes. I mean, you can buy these modules already on a PC board, or you can get them without. You can get them with the thumbstick, without the thumbstick. Same basic module. Okay, over here. Except I printed a handle for it.
Okay.
And we're trying to see if I get something that's nice and useful, that other people would use. And that can be 3D printed. There's some challenges there, the way this is designed and the length of these, getting them to be contained. I don't know if you can see the gap here, if it's enough light along this edge between here.
Okay, barely, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Being at night, the light changed it different. I didn't think about that before. I might have moved the light back and set it on top of my laser printer or something for the night, but it was too late one night before I seen the lighting was that bad. But so there's some challenges there. Trying to get something that'll 3D print, on my 3D printer, and also putting the switches in those, getting something that'll work. I think I'm going to have to design my own cap mechanism, use maybe a right angle switch, and then if anybody guess how well they'll hold up. We'll have to play test those and see how quick they break or if they hold up. So there's a lot involved in that.
Wow, those are some really neat designs. You got a lot of variety of shapes and sizes and stuff there.
Yeah, and and then as you build them, there's things you do that say, oh, well, I need to do this to help it build better. Probably can't see it, but by that pot, there's a couple tabs there to keep it from rotating. So once it's lined up, it's there.
Okay.
Okay. And so there's things as you build them that you miss in the original design. Oh, that needs this. Okay. Or, well, this doesn't 3D print real good. It looks real good in the computer. Okay. But then you go to print it, it's crap. And so you have those different options to do. So it's just like any design work, you do a version and then you do the next version.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the turnaround time from you to order the parts and print up the 3D case and hack it all together and try it? Like, how long does it take to crank out a custom joystick?
Well, it takes some time. I'm still waiting on some switches. I've ordered from a batch of them because I wanted to order, if I want to use them, I want it all the same size. So I bought them cheap from China. So I'm still waiting on those. But the joystick mechanism takes, depending on how much I want to pay. If they have it on Amazon, a couple days, or if it's not on Amazon, it may take a week or to a month. So it depends on a lot of time and on that. And some of these projects, stuff is, something I've had later on. I started on and got distracted on. I started on some of this stuff a long time ago. And so just getting back to the project.
How long does the 3D printing take for the different designs, like say your paddle one versus your joystick one type thing?
Well, the paddle ones, for example, the knob on this took like 45 minutes for the knob. Okay. Maybe a couple of hours for the case.
Oh, that thing you were showing us where you showed the two side by side, those were your knobs?
Yeah, they were different sample knobs I've been playing.
Yeah, honestly, when I first saw that, it looked like the freaking revolver. It looked like a barrel, like a revolver barrel, like where you could put in like a 6-shooter or something. I'm like, what's this guy making guns to get through airport security? What's going on here, John?
There's some holes in there. I didn't want the software to just do their regular fill. Okay, I wanted to be pretty strong, but I didn't want to fill it there. By me putting the holes in it where I want, it then fills in most of the rest of the area. So it's actually probably stronger design than letting the software decide where the print and not print itself.
Yeah, okay.
So now it's John Strong.
It's John Strong. It's like Army Strong, but it's John Strong. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes. So that's kind of the reason for those holes in the bottom, is I just wanted to force it to be, strong where I want it to be. And so there was tests on those. And but by the time you run half a dozen of these, it adds up even on the small ones. And so it takes time.
So did you say you were having a naming a convention for these things? Are they going to be strong sticks or?
I'm not sure. I was going to go with CoCoCade, and I see somebody else using that on a build, so I might try to think of something else. Okay. And
just know that Jason Reichert has the market cornered on any Australian sounding product name, so it can't be an Australian sounding name at all. So
yeah, but he writes it right side up. That isn't right. It's upside down.
Well, I am working on an MC10 version.
That's a 3D printed MC10, huh? So nice. Nice.
And,
looking good, John.
Okay, well, that's kind of what's going on here. And didn't make a little bit of progress, not a whole lot. And I don't. You guys seen that?
Yeah, it's the CoCo top of the CoCo 2-3 case looking thing.
Yeah.
Scale.
Half side. Yeah. Half side.
Yeah, it looks cool.
Okay. And just to let you know, I've been sick this week and still not feeling that good. So if I drop off without letting you guys know, no offense meant. So
okay. No, you should have told us before you joined the call, because now we can all catch it from you. So
well, I'm here on the computer within going down at Denny's with my ham buddies.
You're gonna give us a computer virus. So,
okay. But that's what you got Norton and the other stuff for. So
all right. Well, from the mind and the laboratories of John Strong, we got half a dozen custom joysticks are cooking. Hopefully, these products will be available in the near future for your gaming goodness. Did anybody else have an update or an acquisition to talk about this week?
I got a couple games.
Oh,
we got
Mind Roll,
and another one here.
I get, from my daughters, I get the eye rolls. Does that count? Rad Warrior, that's a cool game.
Yep. So pick those up.
Those are the clamshell, like the bubble, the blister pack, right? So
yep.
That's
the original packaging.
With his original yellowing.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, those look cool.
So,
what is Mind Roll? I don't think I ever played that game before.
I haven't either. It looks like it's like a 3D game. It looks like a maze game.
Okay,
yeah, like an 8-ball.
Oh, that looks kind of cool.
It's one of those fat binary ones too. It runs on the CoCo 1 and 2 using the artifacting color set, and then it has a custom color set. You have CoCo 3 where each level is kind of themed, like there's blues and then there's oranges on the different levels.
Oh, cool. I'm gonna have to find that. I'm gonna have to track that one down. Neat. Cool.
That's funny because I've been saying for weeks that I was going to find my box of CoCo stuff. Well, yesterday I found it, and one of the cartridges in the box was Mind Roll.
Wow. Very cool. I guess the Mind Roll is better than Mind Melt or Head Explode, right? So, good stuff.
And I found a speech sound cartridge. I thought I sold the one I had, but I obviously had another one. And I found some disc controllers, and I found a Black Beauty joystick because I haven't been able to play any of the games without a joystick.
It's cool how you have all this stuff, you put it away, and then you find it again, and it's brand new. Somebody left it for you, and it's weird.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I found that might be of interest to Stevie was the CoCo Songbook.
CoCo Songbook, huh?
Yeah, I should have brought it in with me. It's in the bedroom. But it's a book that Rainbow, I guess, published, or somebody published. It's all full of basic listings of songs.
Wow.
So this is something Stevie could get past level 1 on.
Maybe.
And
we may just have to write Stevie a game that starts at level 99 and goes to 1.
Mm-hmm. Work my way backwards.
It's easier as you play it.
Yeah.
Now, Al, I wanted to ask you, because I think you mentioned you found several different sound cards too, didn't you? Like several different manufacturing speech systems.
Yeah, I found a speech systems. I guess that's called the Super Voice.
Well, they had a couple. Their original one was kind of more like the speech pack. It was the mono, and then they came out with like the Real Talker Super Voice one that did the inflection.
The one I have looks like the Spectrum sound, the Spectrum voice pack, but it's got a speech systems golden label on it, and that's all it says is Speech Systems Batavia, New York. And it doesn't say what it is, so I have no clue.
Because the Super Voice one actually lets you change the inflections. You could have the voice pitch go up and down and make it sound more human rather than the robotic voice you get with the speech sound pack. It was quite good. I remember because Bill or somebody in our club had it.
It might be a Super Voice because in the same box were a set of manuals, and they were the Super Voice manuals.
Oh, cool. We'll have to get you to actually demonstrate that at some point here just to show what the difference is between that
try it and see how it works, and have to find the software. And I found a Spectrum voice pack, and I found another CoCoMax cartridge, so I have 2 now. And I found a J&M disc controller. That's the double ROM with the switch. And I found
the parallel port?
No, this one is not parallel. It does not have a parallel port. And I found a hard drive specialist controller. Also has the dual ROM. But that only has 1 ROM chip in it. They all have extended disk basic. And the J&M had a JDOS as the second switchable ROM. And what else did I find? Oh, I found micro memory or memory micro serial to parallel box, brand new in the box, never used. A bunch of Y cables for the serial and joystick ports. And
Holy crap.
what else was it?
It's like a CoCo Christmas.
Oh yeah, CoCo Christmas. Couple of different Steve Bjork, those high-res joystick controllers. One
Okay.
was for Color Max, one was for CoCo Max, one was the standard Tandy edition. Yeah. Not in the box, though. They were just floating loose around in the bottom of the box. And I'll have to see and a whole bunch of diskettes of different software, Rainbow on disk and Zebra software and something called Pen Pal from that guy in Canada.
It looks like it'd be fun being in your room over there.
Well,
It's kind of like a miniaturized versions of Ron's Gray.
Yeah.
That's a Model 4D right on my right elbow here. Behind me is an Atari. I don't know if you can see it. Is an Atari Mega ST, and above it is an ST512, and then to my left is an LNW80, which is a TRS-80 Model 1 clone with the Amiga monitor on top, and there's an Amiga 1000 behind me somewhere, and you can't see them. I got two Mac Minis to my left. I have a iMac up here above my Dell computer that I'm on. I've got computers everywhere. That's why I don't like being in this room on the camera, because it's so messy. Everything. It's like
Depending on, yeah. So
Are you kidding? That's like geek porn.
Yeah, we're
right,
gonna complain.
It's like a computer geek threw up in here.
Yeah.
Hey, we're all for it.
Above my head are two Apple II GSs and a Laser 128 computer and a Laser 512, which is the XT clone.
So can you actually?
So hey, Al, there's a couple people in the live chat that want to know your address, your alarm code, and when your schedule is when you're not going to be home for a few hours. So
I'm home all the time.
Okay. So
can you?
I have a very big dog.
Cool. Hey, we had
friendly.
A few new people have joined us. So Diego has joined us. Diego Barrizo from Ecuador has joined. Is Ecuador? Did I get it right? Where are you from, Diego? Did I get it right or did I get it wrong?
I think he's in Uruguay.
Uruguay, yes, Uruguay. I know it's one of those damn foreign countries. So yeah, Uruguay. I have a hard time with that name. I don't know why. So how you doing, Diego?
Just remember the Simpsons episode when they go, "You are gay."
You are gay. Okay. All right.
That's
excellent.
The country that the market is cornered on.
Yes, 100% stakeholder in the switcheroo inventory in the entire country.
100% saturation.
Yes.
The other thing, we could corner the market on that too.
And we also had Paul Shoemaker has joined us. Hey, Paul, how are you?
Hi, fellas. Doing good. How are you guys doing?
I have a really bad memory. Have you been on before?
Just lurking. I've never actually joined, I guess.
Okay, welcome. I'm hearing some echo from you, though. Do you have your speakers playing the call?
I don't. Probably talking too loud.
I don't know, because when I'm...
It sounds like Steve's echoing, not you. And I just realized I have no idea how to play this game.
Is that mind roll?
It is mind roll, but I have no idea what I'm doing.
We're getting echo from somebody now.
Probably me.
See if you can lower the volume of the Zoom call, or if you can pop on headphones. Okay, now that he's muted, the echo's gone. Yeah, I think it was you, Paul. We'll get it figured out. But hey, thanks for being here. Good to have you. When you get your sound fixed, we'll play "This Is Your Life," and you can tell us all about who you are, what you're doing, some of your CoCo projects. So we've shared some of your Facebook posts before and stuff like that too. That'd be kind of cool. All right. Anybody else with a product update, project update, acquisition, anything like that? We good?
I'm still continuing on archiving my CoCo discs. I have gone through, I think, 2 boxes now out of 20 of the big, plastic boxes. And I've actually found a few things that aren't even on their archive, so there will be some stuff going up to the archive soon.
Cool.
So you're enjoying yourself, aren't you?
Me?
Yeah. Isn't it fun?
In some ways, yes. Some ways, no. It's fun going, seeing stuff I haven't seen in years and kind of forgot I had. But on the other hand, there's so many discs to go through here. I'm kind of going off the EOU completely to do this, so I'll be off of it for weeks. Plus, I'm getting busy with work now again too, so things are going to be slowing down for getting anything productive done for CoCo stuff. So it's kind of a.
Really, there's no need to sleep.
I don't code so well with no sleep. I have tried that before. It doesn't work.
Take a page out of Zipster's book. Be a Cylon.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well,
or Steve, if you want to zoom up Jason while we're talking here, just to show what mine roll looks like, you can see the CoCo 3 palette thing there. What it looks like.
Oh yeah, yeah. Shit, this always screws up when I double click it. Double clicking never seems to work. Hold on. How do I do this? Do I have to hit spotlight? There we go. Oh yeah, look at that. That looks pretty good.
Yeah, and each level has its own color.
It's like it's an 8-ball, so you're like rolling an 8-ball through a maze.
Yeah, you have to collect keys, and there's zapper squares and all kinds of stuff and trap.
Yeah, the scrolling is pretty smooth. I know it's going through a capture device, and we're
we're doing composite right now, but
yeah, no, that looks good.
So I loaded this game up.
It's just cross-platform too. It's actually on multiple systems.
What's that, Paul?
I said I loaded this game for the first time like 2 days ago, and I tried the first level. Has anyone ever tried the first level?
That stupid hallway where you just go forever?
It just goes forever. Yeah, so I figured I didn't know how to play.
Yeah, just skip that level. Every once in a while, it does let me, if I jump, it'll let me fall through, but I haven't figured out how that works yet.
Ah, okay.
I mean, it's not.
You're not alone.
Yeah, no, I just skipped that level entirely.
Good.
You can do that? So you're saying I can skip level 1 on this game here?
Yeah, you can get past level 1 in this game.
Okay.
Right. As soon as you start the game, it asks you what level you want to go to. So it's a perfect game for you, Stevie.
Excellent. All right. Well, we're gonna get Paul Shoemaker to tell us his life story, but I want to share a few things now too. I've been waiting very patiently, and my anticipation, I can't hold it anymore. So, couple of project updates, and so I'm going to switch screens here for just a second. Why does this always do this now? Left monitor, full screen. Every time I fix this, it never stays fixed. Is it this one? Okay, here we go. All right, so if on the Retro Swag Shop now, there is a new item. There is the new CoCoTALK logo that was drawn by Rick Adams' son, Joel Adams. So you guys have probably seen the new logo, which I've been using it on the show, but I haven't made it into merchandise. So I want to show you something, because when I added this today, this is the logo here. You see the little guy holding up his thumb, CoCoTALK, thumbs up, right? Now, it just so turns out we've got hats, right? So there are baseball caps. There are different types of mugs. There's ball caps. There's this one here is called a snapback baseball cap, which I have no idea what the hell that means, but it looks cool, right? So there's like new merchandise doohickeys now that are available that I'm gonna have to update to all our other products now too. But we've got 3 different style ball caps. There's a whole bunch of different types of mug options now. There's even like a camping mug. So there's a little baby cap. So there's all kinds of new swag. And so this is the brand new CoCoTALK logo that you can get in a men's shirt, woman's shirt, sweatshirts, bags, hats, mugs, you name it. I think it looks pretty cool. It's just very simple. It's very minimal. And it just says CoCoTALK. So brand new product on the swag shop. Available now. Operators are standing by. So if you go to 8bit256.com, you can check that out.
A quick question before you go on to the next.
Yeah.
They've got the official design now for the next CoCo Fest logo from Glenside.
Yeah, I don't like it.
I'll take the answer then. Is probably
okay. But what were you going to say?
Making T-shirts for the.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't design it, and I don't feel like I should be trying to sell something and capitalize on something I didn't do. If whoever designed it said, "Hey, do you want to make this a T-shirt, and we can maybe direct the proceeds to Glenside or something like that," that would be...
or split the proceeds or whatever. Because I know somebody asked John Linville, it might even been Steve Bjork actually, was asking about the design of the T-shirt. We'd have to change the gray in the background, and it sounds like nobody's doing a T-shirt based on it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody discussed with you.
So yeah, I mean, I don't...
you can use my artwork anytime you want.
Okay. Yeah, I'd rather put the Ron Delvaux graphic on a T-shirt myself, but...
Can we get Ron Delvaux on a T-shirt?
Can we get Ron Delvaux on a T-shirt? I'd buy that.
Yeah. It's a DNA issue, but
so that's a good question, Curtis. I don't know who drew it. So whoever the artist is, if we get their permission to do that,
Yeah, ask Neil because Neil's in direct contact with him.
Okay.
And he sounds like he's open to making some changes to make it work on a shirt and stuff. So.
Yeah. And I'm not saying it's bad artwork or anything. It's just it was not of all the ones done. This was not my favorite. And it's nice, but I think there's things missing. Like it doesn't say it's the 28th annual CoCo Fest. There's a few things like that, but there's only so much space. Even like the one where when Ron Delvaux did one, feature creep set in, and can you put the date, and can you do this, and can you do that? You know, it's hard to balance. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to balance all the things you want and make it look pretty. You know, so I get it, but that's just not my favorite design. But listen, hey, I'm not the only person in the world. I realized that like yesterday. So so anyways, the new CoCoTALK logo is now available to get on a variety of swag products. But wait, there's more. Here's another project I have been wanting to do, and just the nice thing about having the show at 9 p.m. tonight is I had all day to play catch up on my CoCo projects, right? So I've got more to catch up on, but also on the swag shop, I need to find my mouse. Where the hell is my mouse? It's over here. Okay. So if you go to the swag shop under DVDs now, the Best of CoCoTALK Volume 1 and Volume 2, these are now new editions. These are now called the quote-unquote very best of CoCoTALK 1 and Volume 2. And you will ask yourself, what is even better on these versions? Well, I'm glad you asked because I'm going to show you. Well, the inside sleeves now have all of the autographs of everybody who was at this year's CoCo Fest. If you recall, I was asking everybody to kind of sign those cards, and I got a number of those cards signed of all the people. Now, there was 2 of these that were auctioned off at the show that were the actual, first generation signatures of the people. These are high resolution scans of the signatures, and since there's a Volume 1 and Volume 2, there's 2 different discs. Each of these cards, the signatures are different. If you look when I switch between my tabs here, you can see how the signatures change. So these are all the different various autographs from the majority of the people who attended CoCo Fest last year are all in here. So these are autographed editions of the Best of CoCoTALK Volume 1 and 2. And there's bonus clips on both of these too. So because these were produced before the fest, there's now some fest type material that's been added to the discs as well. So not only are they autographed, but there's bonus material. So that is new stuff in the swag shop.
Some of those autographs look like they're in crayon.
Well,
the very best of CoCoTALK. Dumpster fire not included.
Dumpster fire not included. But yeah.
Are you gonna do a commercial?
We are. I think Ron has to go potty. So So yeah, we do. I have more to show, but Ron needs a potty break, so we'll come back after this. So go ahead, Ron. I'll start with the sponsors and the commercial break. And for those of you who are new to the show, when you hear the commercials, don't talk because people will hear you talking. So we'll be back in just a little bit. Go ahead, Ron. All right, so we'll start off by thanking some of our sponsors and some community members like the CoCo VGA project at CoCoVGA.com, creator of fine quality dumpster fire products, Boyson Technologies, BOYSON Tech.com. Check them out. Jim Brain, our resident troll from Retro Innovations. You can get all kinds of cool new merchandise for your Commodore, for your TI, and for your CoCo at go4retro.com. Let's not forget Cloud9 Technologies. Dan Loyle mentioned he got lots of stuff from them. So cloud9tech.com. Been making fine quality CoCo products for 20 or more years. The list goes on. Our very own Jason Reichert has many, many products like the Wallaby cable and the Switcheroo, and those are all available at cocoman.biz. Not only are we streaming live on YouTube, also available as a podcast on iTunes and whatnot, but we're also now live on Roku on the CoCo TV channel. Thank you to Roger Taylor. As I mentioned, we got merchandise for days. We got swag. You can check that out at 8bit256.com. Check us out on the web. Our show, I'mACoconut.com and CoCoTalk.live for everything you need to know about us. Let's not forget the CoCo Crew in its 4th year, the original CoCo podcast, CoCoCrew.org. good friend of the show, Nick's neighbor in Australia, Brian Joyce, and Extructus Productions at extructus.com. And last but not least, the human Cylon himself, the maker of many things, Ed Snyder at the Zipster Zone at the ZIPPSTER zone.com. CoCoTALK will return after these messages when Ron's done peeing. We'll see you all in a little bit.
Hi, this is Antonio Jimenez, author of such projects such as the Stevie Throw Devil and the SD Pack, and you are watching CoCoTALK. 3, 2, go.
What's going on, everybody? Original Gamer Stevie Stroh here, and if you're a fan of vintage computing and retro gaming, then you're going to love our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. There you will find custom
Couldn't have planned this
designs
one
by
any better,
Instagram
huh?
artist Joel M. Adams. You can get I'm a Coconut, CoCoTALK, and other cool video game images on a t-shirt, coffee mug, or mouse pad. So if you love retro, then head on over to the retro swag shop at 8bit256.com today. Tell them the Original Gamer Stevie Stroh sent you.
At Gsoft, we make games for the TRS-80 color computer, TRS-80 MC10, and Dragon computers. Our basic games cover the range of genres from arcade, to text adventures, to simulations, to 3D dungeon crawls. This is our latest puzzle game from Japan, Fruit Panic. So come on and drop by our website and download our latest games.
Radio Shack has a great gift idea for the whole family. Fast action TV games, and they're on sale. Get this 6-game model for $29.95 or the 4-game model for $21.95. With rising entertainment costs, that's a real bargain. You play hockey, tennis, squash, and more. Easy to hook up and great family fun that lasts all year long. The sale price TV games. Only at Radio Shack, a Tandy company.
We now return you to CoCoTALK.
And we're back. Hey, Ron, did everything come out okay?
Just wait. He's working on the stack right now.
I had a donut.
Excellent, excellent.
I didn't know it was time for the CoreDUMP segment.
No. Yeah.
Have a better doorstop than you got.
All right.
I got a Timex Sinclair 1000. It's a much better doorstop.
It is. It's a lot more streamlined for getting underneath there.
It's a good monitor.
7 of them.
Too.
I got a rock.
But the MC10 weighs more. That's more better.
Oh, we used to use these at Zebra as monitor stands. You could put a monitor.
The MC10 has better Windows support.
Yeah, it jams right up in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen, the MC10's been doing some cool graphics lately.
Oh
You
yeah,
wanna
I got some
Pretty
queued
neat.
up to show you in the news segment. Yeah.
Okay.
I got a few more acquisitions to show off if you guys can handle it, and then we're gonna play This Is Your Life. You guys want to see and some of these are courtesy of our own Dan Loyle, who's in the panel with us here today. So if you recall, maybe it was right before Christmas, we were talking about joysticks, and I said, well, if anybody wants to know what to get me for Christmas, you could get me one of these here, and I was only half joking, but so Dan found one of these and sent it to me. This is the Tandy Deluxe, pistol grip joystick with the price tag on it, right? And yeah, this thing is like pristine. When you look at it, it's got the trigger on the top, it's got the thumbstick on here, it's got the 4 suction cups. Nothing is like moldy or dry rotted or anything, so it's really clean. Really nice joystick, right? Yep. And so,
well, the only thing is now, see if he's going to get to level 2.
Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah, but
it can't perform miracles. Let's be
now. And then here's another one. I didn't know this one existed, but this is almost a clone of this. But this is a Suncom analog edge. The only thing it's missing is the trigger, but it's got the top button, and I like the colors. It's got the same switch on the bottom to switch between which buttons that you could use. But this was for the Tandy 1000, which also works on our CoCo 1 and 2, right? So I had never seen these before, but this is in really, really good shape. So thanks, Dan, for sending both of those.
Hey, you know what else? You know what else is missing on that joystick? You know
what's that?
A good player.
Yeah.
Yep.
Suncom is notorious for this little slick sticks, little.
I got a question about the stick.
Yeah.
Do you have to lick the bottom here to get these to stick good?
It's not a stamp, Ron.
Oh, okay.
You have to lick the bottom of the suction cup for it to stick. You never know. Yeah, it's nothing
After
better
30
than
years.
Yeah. Nothing like the
Hey.
taste of licking old rubber, huh? So
Flavor not included.
You remember back in the old days, you used to keep that sponge on your desk for stamps. Well, you
Yeah.
used it for your suction cups.
Yeah. All right, and the last thing I'm going to show off, and this is not a CoCo product, but it could be. But this just came in the mail today. This is an Xbox One Sega Genesis style joystick that I am very like. You notice the D-pad? It's a 4-directional D-pad. So I was playing some old retro games the other day on the Xbox, and I'm like, these Xbox controllers, they just can't handle even Pac-Man. It's hard to play Pac-Man on those things because you can't just get 4 directions, right? So this is a very good quality, very well built. It's very rugged. I mean, and in my opinion, the Sega Genesis and maybe the Sega Saturn 6-button controllers, that was like joystick nirvana. Everything fit in your hands. Everything was built well. You could play games well on it, and you didn't need anything more than that. The minute we started getting multiple sticks and analog and triggers and all this kind of crap, joysticks have just gone straight to hell, But that old Sega style, I love that style controller. That's to me, that's perfection in a gamepad,
To this day, when I sit down and play games on my PC, I just get that old-fashioned joystick, and I've got a throttle controller, and it's just like you're inside of an aircraft or something, and it's just nirvana.
Yeah. So for like a lot of the console gaming, to me, that Sega stick was perfection.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like in the CoCo, it's hard to recreate the CoCo sticks on anything else. It's hard to recreate just 4-directional digital sticks properly with our modern controllers because they're too advanced, So sometimes
this is my favorite right here,
the Black Beauty.
Yep.
And the metal top, not the cheap plastic one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, this one says TDP Electronics on it.
It's a TDP joystick. That's
Yes.
really uncommon. Yeah.
That was the one I used the most too, and actually I unscrewed the top and then I used it as a thumb controller.
Yeah.
You can screw the top on. The black plastic ones you can't.
Wow. That's cool. All right, so Paul Shoemaker, are you ready to play This Is Your Life?
I'm not sure.
All right.
He's chickening out.
Or smartening up, depending on your point of view.
Yeah.
Go.
So what do you guys want to know?
Tell us what kind of retro systems did you used to play on when they were back in the day, and what are you doing now for the hobby?
So I think I probably started with CoCo's the same way. Everybody, actually once, Steve, I either read or heard something that you said around how you got started and sort of your progression from a CoCo 2 to a CoCo 3 to like a Tandy 1000, and then you stopped it being in CoCo's for a while. That was almost exactly the same path that I took in terms of got a CoCo 2 when I was, 14 years old, 16K, standard basic, convinced my folks to upgrade it to extended, and then maybe next Christmas got a floppy disk and was kind of off from there. And then when the CoCo 3 came out, I got that. And, I don't want to start anything, but I didn't like it. I didn't. I remember thinking the composite output wasn't as good as I had on the CoCo 2, and just by and large, it didn't do everything that I wanted it to do, and so I ended up selling it and getting a Tandy 1000 EX, and then that sort of took me down my career path, and like today I work for Hewlett Packard, and I don't program professionally, but I did manage to get at least one rejection letter from the Rainbow before that stopped being a thing. And I guess I got back into the CoCo twice. In 1996, I managed to, I think it was through eBay. I don't even remember where I got it from, but I ended up buying a CoCo 2 and a bunch of extra stuff. And after about a year or so, I wrote a game that was since ported over to the MC10 called Caves of the Unwashed Heathen. And it was my first foray into assembly language as well, in terms of I actually did the low-res 3D view in assembly language because it was just too slow to do it in regular BASIC. And so I wrote that game, I did that game, and then a couple years went by. I lost interest in the CoCo again and sold all that stuff. And then maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I guess I got the bug again, and I got back on eBay. And I ended up buying a bunch of new CoCos, and I started working on a couple of new games. And so I've posted a couple of, I don't know, progress videos, screenshots, whatever, on Facebook. The first thing I've started and I've set it aside was a clone of Wizardry. Because
that looked good.
Yeah, it was a game that I always really enjoyed as a kid, and it was just, it never, for whatever reason, I don't think anyone even ever did a clone of Wizardry for.
Prickly Pear had one that they were. I remember this had full page ads for it, but I never saw it, so I don't know if it ever got finished and released. Does anybody else know on the panel? This would have been about 83, 84. Yeah.
Wizardry is different from Gauntlet or Gauntlet.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's a role playing game. It's totally different than. It's not an arcade game. It's a sort of more along. The two main role-playing games at the time were the Ultima style and the Wizardry style. That was the big one.
And Wizardry was text-based. It wasn't really graphics, or
I had a little 3D look, and you had your little monster panel, and
right.
Yeah, you'd walk through 3D mazes in a little corner, and then you'd have your stats, and you'd also have your monsters as they showed up.
Yeah, I never saw it, which is odd because usually either for Spectrum or Zebra, I reviewed a lot of products for us to carry, and I would usually see most of the games, and I don't remember ever seeing that.
You know, Wizardry was released on a lot of different platforms.
Yeah,
but
I played on the Apple II myself.
Yeah, that's the first time I played it, was on an Apple II. And then I got it again for my Tandy 1000, and they had redesigned the interface to be kind of a windowy interface. Instead of having the little 3D view up in the top left-hand corner, it actually took up the whole screen. And that's the version that I was trying to recreate for the CoCo 2, actually. I started on the CoCo 3 and then decided to put it on the CoCo 2 instead. And so I got about part of the way through it, and then I started working on the game that I'm almost done with now, which the way that I came to it was a bit of a long road. So I got CoCo VGA not at this Tandy assembly, but at the last one. And one of the things I thought that was really cool about the CoCo VGA was the 64 column mode. And I thought, now that the CoCo 2 has 64 column mode with CoCo VGA, I'm going to write a version of D&D, or it's also called Telengard. And I remember not knowing that whether or not there was a version of Telengard out for the CoCo 2. It turns out there is. And somebody wrote a really cool, years ago, I guess, somebody wrote a really cool high-res graphics interface for it. And somebody on the Facebook page pointed it out to me. I downloaded it and played it. I thought it was pretty cool. But what I thought would be neat would be to write it in 64 column mode using the low-res graphics that the CoCo has sort of built into it, which is kind of the way that game was written to be run. So I started working on that, and then it occurred to me, why don't I give it kind of a facelift and have that sort of old style D&D approach or Telengard approach, but with sort of a high-res graphics view. So I'm just about done with it right now. I actually am all done except for creating the rest of the levels, which is a bit tedious. But the gameplay is finished, and the core of the game is all done. And it's basically just old style Telengard with kind of a tops down view of the dungeon that you can see. And your guy doesn't run around on the dungeon screen or anything like that. It's just something pretty to look at while you are crawling through the dungeon. And in fact, that's what I'm calling my version of it, Dungeon Crawl.
Cool.
So almost done. And when it's done, I will definitely share it with the community.
That's neat.
And for anybody who likes those types of games, hasn't played Caves of the Unwashed Heathen, you should try it out. It's actually very good.
Thank you. It's it's impossible. It's too hard. I wrote it, and what I did was I
I took the basic Dungeons and Dragons rules in terms of the 2-hit tables and armor class and all of that stuff, and I integrated into it. And it never really occurred to me that basic Dungeons and Dragons is intending for you to have a party of characters, not just one guy walking through a maze. And so one guy walking through a maze, you almost never hit a monster, and it almost always hits you. And it's just really difficult to play without cheating. So I have spent a lot of hours play testing and kind of tuning my dungeon crawl game to make sure it's not impossible.
Neat.
Does it have cheats and stuff?
It doesn't, but it's not terribly difficult to cheat. If you know that it's all written in BASIC with assembly language subroutines, so you can just hit break and then like change your HP equals 5,000, and then type P mode 4.1 screen 1,1 : continue. Press enter. You've got 4,000 hit points. So it is possible to cheat. I don't recommend it, but it is possible to cheat.
Cheaters never win, and winners never cheat.
That's right.
A level 2 Stevie game.
Billy Mitchell.
That's cool. Michael Brandt, just to answer an earlier question in the live chat. So Michael Brandt was asking who made that Xbox gamepad. Michael, the company is called Hori, Hori, and I just did a Amazon search for it. So it is not. It's licensed by Xbox. It's it's an officially licensed product, but it's not a Microsoft brand product.
Now, Steve, have you tried the new controller yet, or did you just get it?
I did. I played a little bit of Miss Pac-Man, which was better, and then I got the Sega Genesis collection for the Xbox, and I was playing on that, and that plays pretty good. What I have to mess with there's a lot of features on this controller too, so you can remap all the keys to be whatever you want, and so that's what I'm going to have to play around with, is to remap some of the keys to make them match what the game wants. So, but I have to fiddle with getting the buttons how I want them, but the D-pad, the 4-directional D-pad is perfect. So it's exactly what I was looking for.
I bought this, which is a Bluetooth controller.
Nice.
That I've been using on Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, it looks good.
Stevie, have you tried the controller on your PC yet, or?
I have not, but it's USB and it's got a switch, so I can switch it between Xbox One and PC mode. So it'll
okay, good.
It'll play on both. So yeah.
Oh, hey Steve, I wanted to mention one more thing. I was actually making really good progress on my game and was really cranking out a bunch of levels, and then I won an auction on eBay for this game right here.
Shanghai, huh?
And then
productivity went down.
I made the mistake of plugging it in and playing it, and I lost about 5 days of productivity for this game right here, Rick.
Yeah.
Have you found the hidden color set?
Rick did not know it, but back at Tandy, when they're testing out for the their PC and for the CoCo, if anybody was caught playing the game that wasn't a tester, they would be fired because they had noticed a loss of productivity once the game started being passed around.
It's addictive, for sure.
So, Paul, have you found the hidden color set that Rick snuck?
I did it, and I'm glad.
No, there's a hidden color set, something that's not RGB and CMP.
It's the color set that Rick originally wanted in the game, kind of an ivory yellowish one, and you got to move the mouse cursor to a certain specific point to find it.
Oh, how very Ready Player One.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, that's an Easter egg. It's very much the holidays.
It's a 1 pixel by 1 pixel spot that you have to hit with the cursor, and it's sort of on the upper left of the screen, and it's like out in space. It's not near any text or anything. So Marty Goodman used to have detailed instructions he would give people on exactly how to find it, but I don't really remember, other than that's the general area where it is. And
I see a video coming up for Stevie.
Or this feels a little bit like a snipe hunt for the new guy. Is this is this real?
Yes, this is real.
Oh no, it's real.
Okay.
Bill Noble, when he was disassembling it for OS 9, when we ported it over to OS 9, found this other alternate palette set in the code, and also this one little trigger spot, and we fiddled with it and we're running it. Oh, there's a new color set in here. What is this? Oh, it's very rare.
And I made it very hard to find because I was deathly afraid that Tandy was going to get upset. So, but all during testing, that was the color set we used during testing. And that's the color set that they told me that they wanted. And the idea of the yellow fringe around the sides of the tiles was it was supposed to look like the yellowing of the actual ivory, real life ivory tiles. They would get yellowed on the sides there where, finger oil had besmudged it. And I really liked that. That was how it was all during development and all during testing. And then at the very, very last moment, they said, "Oh, we don't want that. We want this different color set." And I said, "Okay." And I actually have the original source for that one. And I remember for the colors that they had me change away from the yellow, what was the comment on? It was something like "amazing," which was sort of my passive aggressive comment on it.
Well, I guess they didn't want people to think their computer monitors are getting dirty.
Hey, Paul, did you have the rainbow when you were, first into the CoCo?
I did. I got, when I bought my CoCo 2, it had, I think it was the Christmas edition. It was the 1983 Christmas edition. I remember it. It was the green cover with like the
bow?
The bow on it. Yeah.
December 84.
December 84. So, and I remember thinking that's amazing. And in fact, it taught me how to program in BASIC by keying in listings and getting them wrong and going back and figuring out how to fix it. So yes, I did. That magazine was fantastic, and I subscribed to it religiously until 87 or so when I moved into the Tandy 1000.
Martin Goodman.
Yes. Who have I the pleasure of speaking to? Oh my God, there's Rick. Oh my God, you haven't changed a bit.
Not one bit.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest. We've been trying to keep this kind of hush-hush, but we've got him on the phone. Marty Goodman's with us. Hello, Marty.
Good evening.
Marty.
Long time no see, Marty, since Tim and I visited you about, 7-8 years ago, I guess it was.
It could have been a while ago. Yes, indeed.
I have gained some pounds and lost some teeth.
Rick, it's been decades. Literally.
It has. Yes.
How long do you think it's been? 20, 25 years?
Oh, God. I'm 35. I have no idea.
I don't either. Either. Your beard is almost as gray as mine.
Marty, it may be a long time, but your voice hasn't changed any.
That's true.
Especially
funny thing about Steve, it's been a dog's age as well.
Yep.
Really a dog's. How are you? How have you been?
Oh, hanging in. Welcome to the club. As you can see, the color computer is definitely going through a resurgence, revergent, whatever. It's getting better.
Renaissance, resurgence, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Renaissance.
So, Stevie, take it away.
How did you find us?
Steve reached out to me through Tim
Lindner. Yeah, so Tim Lindner arranged the introduction. We've been emailing, a couple of phone calls, a couple of test calls, and we kind of wanted to bring this as a little bit of a surprise because we weren't sure if Marty was going to make it tonight. And but he's here, and I'm glad you can make it, Marty. I've only spoken to Marty once, and it's very briefly, but I explained to him he's pretty infamous thanks to the rest of the since the rest of the company, So.
There's a great line in an Oscar Wilde play. I think it's from School for Scandal, in which the protagonist is leaving a room full of nasty gossips, and as he exits, he says, "I will leave my reputation behind me."
So he needs to tell us about himself.
Excuse me? I'm sorry.
Oh, you want to play This Is Your Life and tell us about your you know how you got started with the CoCo and what you've been up to lately?
Well, I think Steve Bjork and Rick are, if they dig into their memories, are familiar with the story of how I got into it. But I was working as the paid doc at the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic, and one of my patients turned out to be a sort of home computer guru, wise fellow, and I asked, well, gee, I'm thinking of buying a home computer, and what should I get? And they said, oh, go to this guy's house. And I went to this apartment in the Haight-Ashbury, and there was this guy there who had like every sort of home computer there. He had S100 bus machines and Commodores and Apples and I think Apples. Maybe this may have been, yeah, that would still be in that day. And he was showing me ARPANET. I think this was even before there was an internet, and ARPANET, the predecessor, and he was of the internet. And he was logging onto that and showing me that and showing off all his equipment. And I was saying, okay, well, what should I get as a home computer? And way off in the corner, you could almost not see it, was this little Radio Shack color computer. And he said, get this one. And I said, well, why is that? Well, it has this amazing processor and really great color video, and it's unlike anything else. You get this one. And I went out and bought it, and that's how I began to enter the world of the CoCo.
Do you remember who that was that you were talking to?
I could find his name next time I chat with you, because I know some people who know him. I'm at a loss now to remember the name. He was someone who had. It wasn't Captain Crunch. It was someone who knew Captain Crunch. It was someone who was of some notoriety at the time in the world of computer hacking and computers. But I'm damned if I can.
Was it Snap Crackle Pop or Tony the Tiger?
No. I could retrieve the name. I have a friend who I'm sure, if I asked, could instantly tell me the name.
That was just a little breakfast cereal humor there for you. So.
Yes. Yeah. Well, do you folks know of the legendary Captain Crunch?
Yeah.
Phone hacker and all that.
Mr. John Draper, yes.
John Draper, indeed. It wasn't he, but it was someone connected with that circle.
You have to remember, folks, that don't know Marty that well.
Interestingly enough, sort of jumping ahead about 30 years, I ended up crossing paths in a completely different context with another major figure from the world of computers. Some of you folks may be aware, or you may not be, that my avocation and passion the last 10 years pretty much has been making high quality digital archives of periodicals, newspapers and magazines and some pamphlets of the socialist and communist left in English printed in the US in the period of 1912 to roughly 1972. In any case, I got started doing that because I was given extraordinary access to original copies of rare old newspapers and magazines from that world, important ones, centrally important ones that were available in very few collections, and no one else would let me touch them. And the collection they were in was one that was amassed and funded by one Rod Holt. Rod is not as famous as Wozniak or Jobs, but he was, as I understand it, quote unquote, the third man in the garage with the two of them. Specifically, I believe his first major contribution to Apple, where he was, I think, the third or fourth person on the company payroll, was the design of the switching power supply for the Apple II, which it's kind of prosaic, but it was very important in marketing the Apple and making it economical to sell and all that good stuff.
Reduced the weight tremendously, too.
Excuse me?
It reduced the weight of the whole computer.
Yes, it did. And cost.
Yes.
Both, yeah. I mean, for years after, I was still making linear power supplies because to this day, they're the only thing I really understand. But the switchers have changed everything.
So can people indulge me a little bit? I would like to show off from Marty what my evil underground lair.
Sure. Sure.
Sure.
So let's see. So here we have. That's my Raspberry Pi there that I'm doing I'm doing a display for somebody's store. I'm developing that right now. And over here is the CoCo Pi. So that's a color computer development system on a Raspberry Pi. I have 3 Raspberry Pis in this room right now. Here's my color computer that has, I'm running like a kiosk that runs all of my games. And right at the top it says, "Would you like to play a game?" Which I think is a quote you'll... And this will please Marty. Over here, I have my foray into hardware. So that's 300 full color LEDs with WS2811 controllers in each one, and a Raspberry Pi running all of that. And it even has like a very simple hardware board that's on top of that just has a quad NOR gate that I use to shift. The Raspberry Pi has a signal out of 3 volts, and the lights really want 5 volts. So I just use the quad NOR just to boost it up to 5 volts. So that's it. That's all I got.
That's a neat scrolling thing. Where did you acquire that?
The lights, you can get them on Amazon. They're like about $15 to $20 for each 50 light strand, and so the lights typically have 3 inputs, which are ground, plus 5 volts, and signal. And the signal is it's like what is it? It's 24 bits of color, 8 bits of R, 8 bits of G, and 8 bits of B for each bulb, and it's just a train of pulses, and it's self-clocking. So the pulse is fat, it's wide in the timing for a 1, and it's skinny for a 0, and each bulb eats 3 bytes of color for itself, and then passes the rest of the pulses on down the line. And so by the time you get to the last bulb, it eats the last 24 bits, and then it's all gone. So that's the 50,000 foot view.
Cool.
Did everybody take notes on that? There's going to be a test later on. So.
I have 2 quick, minor personal questions. Steve, are you still hanging out in Southern California?
Oh yeah, I just got back from Disneyland today.
I guess that should have been my next question. Are you still an aficionado of Disneyland?
Yeah, and my main day job this day is designing, building controllers and other things for audio animatronics.
Really? I must say you have retained an exceptionally youthful appearance.
I don't feel it all that well, though.
No, I mean, I say this, of course, entirely as a compliment, and I'm really impressed, quite frankly.
Oh, I've got the gray. Trust me, the headphones kind of hide it.
Only your hairdresser knows for sure.
And everybody else that looks at me. Okay.
He's immortal.
He's got that Reed Richards look going on.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, then speaking of famous celebrities, David Ladd has just joined us too. Hey, David. And also Marty, Neil Blanchard, another Canadian who's from the CoCo Crew podcast. He's watching us live. He says, "Tell Marty I'd like to say hi and thank you for signing a copy of Marty's Nightmare for me."
Oh, that was very. You're most welcome. I'm touched.
I was going through my disc box here trying to find my copies of Graphicom, but I couldn't find them, and the closest I came was my copies of Festoop.
Ah, yes, I remember that. That was the heritage of my days in high school, learning how to optimize programming a Monrobot 11-2000 in 1964, which was this computer that my high school bought, and its main system memory consisted of a magnetic rotating drum with about, I think, 2K of 16-bit words. And I learned that the head could access the drum once every third of a revolution. So I wrote machine code to optimize the speed at which it could grab hunks of memory off it. And learning to do that stood me in good stead 15 years later when I was trying to write fast disk duplication programs.
Yeah, when I worked at both Spectrum and Zebra, I used FastDupe to make our commercial disks.
Cool. If I remember correctly, FastDupe would... I'm trying to remember. I think it worked on. It wouldn't do a full disk.
No, it did a track at a time. It would go right down the row of drives, take the track from drive 0, and then 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3,
right,
3, and would bang out 3 copies in one shot, or as many drives as you had.
And of course, I was also indebted to Fred Sisson of Xenosoft, who is the world master of disk format and structure and architecture, who tutored me in some of that. He's not actually. He was briefly in the CoCo world. In fact, I met him at a CoCo meeting locally, but he lived mostly in the PC world.
I'm just wondering what I did with my copies of Graphicom. In a box somewhere is the story of my life.
If need be, I may be able to get you one. Although I've gotten rid of most of my color computer stuff, but I think I still have a Graphicom around here.
No, it's probably in the box with my Graphicom foot pedal.
Well, I'm still in touch with one of the 2 co-authors of Graphicom, Mike Kahn. I was just talking to him this morning, as a matter of fact.
We'll need to get him on here.
that Graphicom was a whole different paradigm of drawing software. It was nothing like ColorMax, CoCoMax, any of that. It was a whole differ't paradigm.
Kind of like full screen, yeah.
Mike would be pleased to hear you say that. They too saw it as something unique, understandably, and I'm delighted to hear others are seeing it that way.
They stayed away from Apple.
Hey, Marty?
Allowed non-artists to do some nice work with the stamps and all the things you could do with it.
And how many other drawing programs had a graphic XOR, eh?
Not many, I don't think.
Hey, Marty?
Yes.
Do you remember way back in the day my game Bomb Threat?
The name I recall. I am having trouble remembering the game itself, but I certainly remember the name.
Right. I was wondering. It's like I gave copies of that game to very few people, and I was kind of wondering if you were one of them, because the original game I lost the disc to, and so I actually had to recreate it from scratch.
If you gave me a copy, and if I retained it, which I probably did, I pretty much retained everything. It's likely in Tim Lindner's hand at this time, and I can ask him about that.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. Let me show you my what I made of it.
Okay.
So, wait, I gotta turn this around here. Yeah, there's the game. And we the only thing that we had, I couldn't find the disc, but we had a gameplay video that I did on tape, on videotape. So from that gameplay video, I very carefully reproduced it from scratch.
That's what we call a serious reverse engineer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's even been produced on cartridge too. So.
And if you bought the cartridge, it came with a bug.
Yeah, it did.
Rick did not have it thoroughly banged on by a bunch of people.
Mm-hmm.
He should have turned it over to Peter and Michael. They would have beaten it to death.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes. Well, somebody did.
It was Grant.
I don't remember who.
Grant Leighty.
Oh, it was Grant.
Grant Leighty found the kill screen.
Or as I call him, Grant Brickley. Because I called him that because the bug was let me quit this so you don't have to listen to the game anymore. As you played it, it got more and more difficult as you went on, but there was some logic for once you got to a certain level, it's like, okay, don't make it any more difficult. And it would make it difficult by, it would add more blocks for you to clear. And but the logic was faulty. So it never limited, throwing on more blocks. So at some point, you'd get to the point where the entire screen was full of blocks. And then, after that, it would try to put one more block on past that, and it would get caught in a loop, and it died. So Grant finally got to a high enough level that he ran across that and took a screenshot and showed it to me, and I said, "Oh my!
Oh my!
So, oh my! Yes."
But all good classic retro games have that kill screen. So the Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man have a kill screen. Donkey Kong Jr. has a kill screen.
Right.
So you're in good company.
So back to Marty's early days.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask you, Marty, because you told me a little bit of your history when Tim and I, when you took us out for supper that one night. Thank you again for that. But you had mentioned, yeah, thanks. You had mentioned at that time that you're originally from the East Coast.
Yes. I was bred, born, and raised for 16 years in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah, and then you went out to the West Coast, and then you became, I think, an anesthesiologist. Is that correct?
Yes, I did. I practiced anesthesia for a while. I also practiced some general medicine. I kind of toddled away from medicine with some element of bitterness and disgust. There probably would have been more productive ways of handling that, but to this day, I'm pretty appalled by the way medical care is administered and provided in this country. The fact that it's not available to all, the fact that it's a for-profit system. I mean, even I may be a leftist, a socialist, whatever, but even in a large number of capitalist countries, medicine is available to all, but not in this one. And I was really appalled. I just didn't like the notion of people dying in the streets for want of medical care and people being financially ruined by that. And there were other ways to react to that than walk away that would have been more productive. But at the time I was a bit hot-headed.
No.
You never.
Never.
No.
I think your reputation precedes you.
I'd always loved tinkering with electronics. I'd been playing around with circuits and soldering things up from when I was, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years old. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but that's the way I like to remember it, and I think I remember it. But what the hell?
Yeah, that was my question, because you'd mentioned that you did programming on the drum-based systems back in '64 in high school, and I was wondering, why did you not stick with that as a vocation, since you already had an aptitude for it, obviously, and then you actually ended up doing it in the 80s and 90s?
I guess at that time it never occurred to me that would be a vocation or a profession or whatever. It was just something that held my fascination, and the track that I was on at the time was that of biology, science. Initially, I thought I would be some sort of an academic scientist, and then later, I candidly just decided that I began to meet really, really bright people in the sciences. I went to Harvard for undergraduate, and before that I was going on Saturdays to Columbia Science Honors Program. And that was where I realized that, while I was okay, I had an okay mind and all that, it couldn't compare to that of some of the folks I met at Columbia and some of the folks I met at Harvard. So I figured that I would probably be better off studying medicine and doing something simple and practical. Although I guess all along and to this day, if I think of myself as having an identity, it's before anything else, and a lot of my identity is political, leftist, et cetera, but before anything else, I'd say my identity is that of a scientist, one who believes in evidence-based science, scientific method, et cetera. So, yeah, I guess I could have slipped into the sciences. I don't know, what can you say? Was it a Jewish cultural thing? The Jews aren't supposed to be engineers? I don't know. I looking back, I don't think my mind went that way, but some people claim that's an aspect of the culture. I'm not really sure, quite frankly.
Well, one thing I've always found, Marty, is that there'd be something that would come along in your life that would be a little bit on the technical side or science side or whatever, but you would do your studies and you would take to it, and lo and behold, you'd be one of the experts in that area.
Well, I think one of the reasons is I would be perceived as such with some degree of validity, because one I guess ability I think I had was an ability to teach and communicate. And often I would relay stuff that I'd learned from you, from Rick, from Peter, from Michael, and I would put that forward. I would never claim that I was the only one to think of it, but it would be associated with me because I was the one who was, I don't know, or, you know, promoting it. I was the one who was dramatizing it, something like that. Does that make any sense to you, Steve?
Oh yeah, definitely. You were one to, you know, somebody would come up, say, look, remember WeFax?
Right.
You know,
right.
you know. You had somebody that developed it, but you went out there, I wouldn't say marketed, but you went through and promoted it.
Publicized it, and even promoted. Yeah, I'll accept the word promoted. It was now my relationship with Peter and Michael was very curious. Michael is a brilliant and somewhat strange fellow in many ways, including the fact that while he's a wonderful, sweet, kind, generous person who I love very dearly, he is a bit, I don't know what you want to say, autoid or Asperger-like. He sometimes struggles when it comes to relating to other folks. And Peter, while he I wouldn't say Peter was autistic in any way or Asperger's, but he had his own reasons for shunning the limelight. And so I basically became the public face of those two. And WeFax was one of their creations.
Yeah, another creation from them that you went through and promoted is basically how we met.
That was Steve was reminding me of that the other day. The funny thing is that I think your renditions of the story I probably would mostly agree with. I think our recollections of that, dramatic as they are surprisingly similar. What I definitely remember, there was a moment when I was actually concerned that I might become the victim of physical violence.
Yeah, I made a joke about I
think you were manipulating that to some extent, but if that's what you were doing, you did it superbly well.
I made a joke about I was so mad I was going to send the Luigi brothers up there and with a
I remember
pipe
those
in your
words.
knees coming
I
up
remember
back.
those words.
Yeah. But it's like, here's the thing. I've been working really hard to get Zaxxon out, and we just got it out, and here's this great West Coast Computer Fair. The company's got a booth there and everything else. And I get a phone call on opening day because I'm still back taking care of things about, yep. Well, this guy walked up and he stuck a stack of papers down in our booth that he wanted us to hand out to everybody. And it was how to break the copy protection on Zaxxon so you could make your own backup copies. Because everybody has the right to have backup
part of it, and that must have been very early in, for want of a better name, my cracking career, because I got much less flagrant about that later on.
Well, see, you're a man of many passions, and your passion was if somebody paid money for the software, they should have the right to back up the software.
And I to this day, I'll stand by that. But I certainly to this day, I certainly don't see it as right to cause you harm in making a living writing software.
Yeah, but it's so funny because I'm on this phone call and he's reading, will this crack it? He's telling me each line that you have on that sheet of paper. And will this crack it? Will this crack it? Will this crack? I'm going to, I don't know. So the next thing I know, within about 3 hours, I'm a jet up to San Francisco. And I kept hearing stories about every time I walked into a room, Marty was running out the other door.
I don't recall that part of it. You may be exaggerating a little there.
Yeah, it could be, but still,
maybe.
it was
one way or another.
But we still managed to become friends, and that's the way Marty is. Marty did not have malice in his heart. He had a political point of view that he was very strong about, and I can appreciate that.
Well, I think I had a certain ideology that had many good points, but I turned it into early on. How to say this? There's no one so righteous as the recently converted, and when you first get an idea, you just go with it and blow it up and blow it in directions where it may not be appropriate. And I suspect that's what I was doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you did calm down a little bit from that. You didn't go the next day and put another stack of papers on. Take a soft booth,
I do remember what I do remember clearly, going back down all the years, was the element of fear as either as you were approaching or as we were talking. I forget which, but there was a genuine element of fear. That part of your story, if that's what you tell, I will confirm that.
Yeah. Well, I was a little upset. Pissed might be a better word, but I calmed down. So, but yeah, it's just if we go through everything, there's definitely history. Obviously, I don't hold animosity to you. I made a video game and had you star in it. What can I say about that?
Yeah, Jason's playing it right now.
That was probably to this day one of the greatest honors I ever received from anyone. No shit, Sherlock. Really, that was extraordinary of you to do that.
Well, it's just like I'd watch you at a convention and people would come up and they'd be asking you questions, and you'd be telling them, "No, I got to get over because I'm doing speaking right now. I have to be there." Matter of fact, I remember one time I think there was somebody from the Rainbow Fest group that was actually trying to drag you into the hall because all these people were trying to stop you and ask you questions. I'm going, right. There's a video game in this. But
by the way,
is a video game.
Just getting back to Marty's nightmare, you not only wrote this game, but it wasn't, at least to my perception, I don't know how you see it yourself, but it wasn't like, a trashy little stupid thing that you could put a name on. It actually wasn't a bad game.
No. I mean, it was using hardware scrolling on the CoCo 3. It had digital samples in the game. Yeah, it was.
No, it was a for real game. It wasn't just sort of, okay, this is going to look like a game or something.
Mm-hmm. I always wanted to do kind of a Pac-Man style game, but and you had to collect the things in there, and if you kind of messed up, you had to go find Marty and get him to answer your question.
Well, it was extra. I will thank you again for that kindness. It is one of the greatest honors. Certainly, is one of the greatest honors I ever received. At any
Marty
or anything. Yeah, Rick.
I have a very old story involving you that I've told before. That we're in a really public forum, so I'll have to phrase this really coyly. But
is this the one about the San Francisco airport?
Oh, that was delightful. No.
Now closing level 4.
Yes. Okay, that story and one other I wrote up for Delphi under the titles of Adventures with Marty Goodman, Part 1 and 2. And it would be wonderful if somebody could find that again. But that's not what I was talking about. I'm talking about a conversation we had about Bob Rosen, in which you paid me probably the nicest compliment I've ever had. And here's where I start to talk very coyly. Okay, Bob Rosen is an interesting guy.
Yes.
And and there are people that don't like Bob Rosen for various reasons, which I won't get into. But at one point, I was visiting you, and you were telling me about some recent events in Bob Rosen's life where he had made some poor life decisions, and they resulted in consequences that put him in kind of a bad spot. His life was perhaps in some danger, and so he was kind of on the down low, and so I replied, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." and you said, I think you're the only person on the earth that that would say that, and that I could take at face value.
I vaguely remember that interaction. By the way, while you're here, and now that I have a chance to address you for the first time in so many years, Rick.
Yes, sir.
There's a turn of phrase you used back then. I think it was in the immediate aftermath of our adventure in the San Francisco airport, if I'm not mistaken. A little while after that, I called you and said, "Hey, Rick, how'd you like to get together?" And your particular turn of phrase in response to that, I have adopted, and I've used it with minor modifications for many decades since then, because I thought it was.
I can't wait to hear this.
Gee, Marty, I'd really, really like to, but I'm sorry that day I've just got to floss my cat. And that phrase stuck with me, and I began to adopt it. And then I thought about it, and I thought, it's not quite right. And the reason I thought about that was because years later, I brought a cat into my life, Mr. Number 6. I lived with him for 17 years. He was just a marvelous being, just a thoroughly fine, wonderful creature to share a life with. But as he aged, he had dental problems, and I brought him to the vet. And one by one, his canines, his incisors, his fangs had to be removed because of gum disease. And at one point, I think after the second one was removed, the vet said to me, what you can do to try to prevent this from getting worse is you can floss him. And true story. And although he was very tolerant of many manipulations that I had to do on him, like Lance abscesses on him, I didn't think I could get him to sit still for flossing. But in any case, I did realize that actually flossing a cat was a real thing. So I took the liberty of changing your touch phrase there to, "Gee, I'm really sorry, but I've got to floss my parakeet that day." Which is much safer because birds don't have teeth.
Now, I don't recall using that phrase. When I say that sort of a thing, what I usually say is, I think I'm going to be feeding my goldfish that day. But I could have said that.
No, I'm reasonably certain you said that at that time. And if you didn't, it's an absolutely fixed confabulation of mine.
Hey, we just got joined by our Australian friend.
Hey, Nicky.
Nick Marentes.
G'day, everyone. Yeah, sorry I'm late.
Now, Marty, I want to take it back. Like Stephen, a few others mentioned, you were really good at doing the education thing, like being able to take other people's ideas and explain them well, which is something you did in your regular column on the Rainbow, too. How did that come about? Did Rainbow approach you? Did somebody else speak on your behalf? Or how did that whole column come out?
I'm not 100% sure how I wound up writing a semi-regular hardware feature in Rainbow. I would imagine at some point or another I was invited to do so. A decision was made either by Jim Reed or Lonnie Falk that they wanted such a thing, but it would be based on, I think I started submitting individual hardware articles, and I'm a little fuzzy on the details, but I would imagine that they approached me and said, "Hey, how'd you like to, do a regular hardware column?" And I'm sure I leapt at the chance. I was delighted to have an opportunity to do that. That was a lot of fun.
Did they pay you?
Excuse me?
Did they pay you well?
It wasn't. No one made a lot of money writing for Rainbow. Okay.
Yeah.
I was paid. It wasn't done for free. I forget the exact sums. They weren't very large. They were modest. And it was more the joy of doing it.
And did you have out of the various little hardware and even some software projects that you did there, did you have a few that stick out in your head as being favorites of yours that you're really proud of? Or
oddly enough, the one I remember best and liked best was one of the more dead simple ones. Well, I ended up distributing a very nice monochrome monitor driver for the CoCo. Probably ended up selling about 1,000 of them through various dealers, and it gave a particularly nice, clean, professional looking display, and I was very, very proud of that. So that tiny little project, I mean, we're talking about 2 transistors and a couple of wires that you solder to the right places and a connector and that kind of thing. I always liked that little one. I don't know, you may recall that I for a while was kind of Mr. CoCo RGB cable guy.
Yep. You had a Sony something or other, I think that was one of your favorites, wasn't it? KVC?
One of the monitors I supported was the Sony, I forget his number, but it was available in various sizes, although I think 13-inch was the more common size.
I think it was the KVR 1311.
That's right. And they actually made that monitor, I think, in 3 different sizes, but the 13-inch was, I think, by far the most common that people had. At least 2 sizes, maybe 3, and that had a weird ass connector on it. Its connector for RGB was I'm trying to remember. I think it was a dual row 17-pin connector, or it was a very odd connector, and it had one minor headache. The Sony wanted composite video, and the CoCo put out composite sync, and the CoCo put out separate horizontal and vertical sync. So you had to add a chip to it. I think I was using a 74 LSO2 to combine the sync signals, and therefore you had to power it. So you had to find 5 volts to power the thing, and so that became an issue in making the darn cable work. I mean, either you had to have an external 5-volt supply, or you had to put a jumper wire inside your monitor to put 5 volts on the connector or something.
Hey, Marty, are you aware of all the different solutions there are now for the CoCo?
Steve, interestingly enough, Steve was spent about 15 minutes in our chat enlightening me about some of the really elaborate stuff that's being done to basically make the old 15.75 or whatever his number was horizontal analog RGB feed into VGA monitors. That someone now commercially makes basically a black box that does that conversion, as I understand it.
Yeah, it's the RGB to SCART, and then the SCART to HDMI. There's a number one. There is one that goes to VGA too, but yeah, there's so many things. I mean, we could spend the next 4 hours catching you up on all the new CoCo contraptions. There's so much stuff going on right now. It's really cool.
One of the things you said that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Mario, one of the best things that's selling out there for the CoCo is a cartridge you plug in that emulates the floppy disk drive connecting to an SD card.
That is seems to me like one of the first things you'd want to develop if you're bringing the CoCo into the modern age.
Yeah, because they have, what is it, 500, 700 of these things have been sold?
700 plus sold.
Yeah, of these things have been sold. So, yeah, Jason's holding it up on the monitor there.
Literally the best thing I've ever bought for my CoCo.
It seems like an extraordinarily sensible product to devise.
I mean, it absolutely positively emulates the Western Digital floppy disk controller. So all you have to do is any software pretty much can talk to the SD card as if it was a floppy disk.
Yeah, it even does copy protected disks too. Like if you get a Cat Weasel or one of the other boards that allows you to physically copy a floppy, irregardless of copy protection schemes, it'll actually run those properly.
Well, that's actually I was going to ask about that. Some of the copy protection schemes used unusual track formats on the floppy. I would think that thing would have a hard time with that. No,
it runs perfectly fine.
Yeah. Really?
Delvaux.
I mean, it's right down to the hardware level. So yeah.
So it emulated not just the data, but at the level of the headers for the tracks and the sectors and all. Oh, really?
Sync by
that's an extraordinary emulation.
There's the old really. That's the thing I was looking for.
No, that's an extraordinary level of emulation. Somebody was really doing their homework on that thing.
Yep. Yeah, so yeah, the community has definitely moved along. I mean, Richard's on the phone call. He makes a lot of good stuff. He's got a 2 meg, what he calls boomerang board for your CoCo 3.
It's a very tiny. It's an SRAM video, or not video, RAM instead of the conventional DRAM.
Just like this.
So it won't run broiling hot.
No, not at all.
Yeah, your CoCo power supply never had it so nice.
Well, Jim Brown's got an 8 meg board. So,
correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but it was either you or someone else who had substantially greater hardware knowledge than I was explaining to me that there was something that wasn't done quite right with the timing of the dynamic RAM that made the CoCo RAM, particularly the 512K board, tend to run on the toasty side. And or at least most of the boards did. That they did something that, like, it wasn't disastrous, but it wasn't quite right, and it resulted in the darn RAM running a bit on the toasty side. Does that sound at all familiar to any of you folks out there? Or?
Richard,
yeah, it was probably the Tandy mounted their DRAM underside the board itself. So there wasn't really good ventilation, so it would tend to heat up. So that was a very poor design.
Before we go any further, Richard, you really should introduce yourself and what you used to do to Marty. I think he would find it fascinating.
What did I do to Marty?
No. Yeah.
I mean, it was the one time we had a run in it in Delphi, but that was long ago. But
no, what I meant, what you used to do at Tandy.
Oh yeah, I used to work at Tandy Computer Assembly, but I also worked at Radio Shack. I was repair manager and technician.
Ah, well, I had an in at Tandy in my early days of the CoCo. There was a local technician. Let's see, how much of the story should I reveal? I think the statute of limitations has expired on this. There was a technician locally who I got to know and got to be friendly with. I think I initially ingratiated myself to him when I had an EEPROM programmer, and he would come over and clone the EEPROM of the early portable cell phones. So you recall the ones that were like bricks with a handle on them and a handset. And in those days, the VESN was in a socketed EEPROM. So he would run a side business making duplicated phones for people. And he would come to me to burn extra 27 128s for the darn things. And so in return, he would keep me abreast of all the service updates on the CoCo and be a wonderful, source of obscure parts if I needed them. And I think one day he came by with a special present, a huge roll of those, what's the word for it? Those stickers, that says, do not break this seal, your warranty is, they gave me a huge roll of official Tandy stickers so that when I worked on people's CoCos, I could slap them on the hole when I was done and they could feel better about it.
Okay, Marty?
Yes.
Okay, there's a number of phrases that will always be wedded to you in my mind. And I just want to remind you of them so that you can talk about them. Number one is Howard Cosell.
Yes. That's from Jim Reed. It was Jim Reed who came up with it.
Yes.
That's part of your Byline and Rainbow. Yeah, the Howard Cosell of the CoCo world.
Yes,
many a person might have taken that in an ill fashion. Not only I, but I think just about every one of my friends, when I told them that I had been called that, they said, "Wow, that's a really great compliment."
Yes. The other phrase that I think of is cretinous chimpanzees.
Yes, I haven't heard or used that one in ages, or at least not.
Well, I believe that.
But I guess I sprinkle it into my conversation once in a while. It's such an irresistible phrase. It's politically incorrect. It's making fun of someone with a medically based disability, but what can we say?
Does some of that have to do with articles you wrote over the years, or no?
Well, the phrase "cretinous chimpanzee," while it's generally a deprecatory, negative phrase that is a dim assessment of someone's intellect or abilities, in the days of the CoCo, it became largely associated with Tandy people. from me, I hate to say, but I think that's what you folks remember. And that came to a head one day I think it was at a Rainbow Fest. I'm pretty sure it was a Rainbow, must have been, couldn't have been anything else. And these three folks in suits came gently marching up to me and said, "Hi, Marty, we're the cretinous chimpanzee." Which impressed me very much, that those Tandy execs had a fine sense of humor.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you really got to give them credit for that.
I was just
But
going to
you
ask
also
if
have,
Rick was
you have to give Marty credit too, because he knows how to stir the pot but keep everybody happy.
Marty, did you know?
As do you, Steve.
Oh, no. That could, words never. No. Those words are not true. Trust me. I stir the pot plenty of times, and there's people that get pretty pissed.
Yes, but you know how to be a showman too. As a matter of fact, you did it professionally.
That's true. I used to spend time on the stage doing magic.
You still do magic?
Not as well as I used to. Matter of fact, prefer not to do magic anymore, because it's more, as I'm doing the trick, I'm being more educational than entertaining. I just don't have the skills I used to. More along the
lines of Houdini and the Amazing Randy.
Yeah. But
I've very seldom gone to performances by illusionists, but this last, I'm now bi-coastal. I live half the year in New York, half the year on the West Coast. And this has basically been since the death of my parents in 1998 and 9. They gave me their apartment in New York, and I ended up taking it over, and now I occupy it half of the year. This last time I was in New York, I was just speaking of magic or illusion. I went to one largish performance, but then I went to this. It was an extraordinary performance. It was at a magic shop. A for real, illusionist shop in New York, and we're talking about maybe a dozen people as audience, maybe 12 to 16. We're talking about a small shop. Everyone is around a table. You're no more than somewhere between 2 and 4 feet from the illusionist, and he's pulling off these incredible illusions. And there's no way, there's no TV that can be cut. You're not 20, 30 feet from him. You're literally a foot or two, and he's pulling it off. I couldn't figure out how he was doing it at such close range. It was an extraordinary experience.
Steve's the guy that does that here for us.
Aha. This guy was concentrating. He did some tricks that were other than some illusions that were other than cards, but he focused on card-based illusions, and man, they were extraordinary. They had my jaw dropping, and I was all ready to like see through him and da-da-da-da-da, and I thought I was pretty observant and da-da-da. No way. I mean, this man knew his stuff, and he put on an absolutely stunning show.
A true artist can do close-up magic, which is what he was doing, to the point that it is magic. It's not an illusion anymore. It is magic, and it's telling a story in the process too.
Well, needless to say, his presentation was, his patter, his story, his support story and stuff was spot on and perfect and engaging, and all of the things that someone who's really good at that art would do.
Well, I'm sure you tipped him well.
It was the fee for being part of such a relatively small exclusive audience was reasonably respectable, although it could have been bigger. Yeah, it's some friend of mine had told me about this, and yeah, I don't know. It's a little off topic of CoCo, but I was thinking of you and your work doing illusions, so I thought I'd mention it.
Yeah. It's been years and years since I've been on a stage. So,
well, one of the things that I've gotten into, I don't want, this again is off topic from CoCo, I'll just mention it, and one doesn't need to pursue it, just like my politics. This is a related but different area. Let's see, probably should just say it and then we can move on. I've been somewhat into publicizing against quack medicine. Not surprisingly, being an MD, of course, but I've built up a library of books about evidence-based medicine and things that aren't, and I've been very, you recall how I was vocal in the world of the CoCo. Well, I've been vocal in that arena as well. And then the other thing, and this will probably provoke some strong negative reactions, but I'll mention it because I'm proud of it, but we don't need to talk about it any more than that. But over the years, based on what at least I understand of simply the facts, the science, and the medicine that underlies this, I have become a very active and enthusiastic pro-nuclear advocate, and at the same time I've attempted to educate people against what I understand, and many of you folks may not and may differ strongly with me on this, but what I understand is the fraud and scam of solar, wind, and other so-called renewable powers. So that's been another aspect of my life. Some folks find this interesting because they associate that position in science or in energy policy with people on the right politically, but I'm on the left, so what the heck. Well, a lot of libertarians are also of that position as well, though. It is, whatever you may think of that, of those statements of mine, what I will say is that a position on energy policy, at least as I see it, is not a political thing. One way or another, it's a matter of what you understand the science and the medicine to say, and science and medicine have their own rules, and political ideology should have nothing to do with that, right or left. That's all.
So did you ever believe in biorhythm programs?
Mostly I've been skeptical, but I mean, there's no doubt there are biorhythms. Okay. I mean, that I won't deny. I think the programs as marketed and presented, for the most part, my understanding was they tended to read a lot more into them than either what was there or at least what you could do with them. But yeah, I guess that would answer your question.
Marty, I know you definitely agree that there's some sort of biorhythm going on in the body, but to figure it out from your birth date?
No, that's nonsense. You can reset your clock. The bottom line is your clock can get reset. Anybody who's ever done world travel and travels to different time zones and then lives in them knows that.
For entertainment purposes only.
Yeah, what you have to do is monitor your rhythms, get them in there, and then you might be able to do some prediction. But you still need some sort of double blind going on, because you can affect your own biorhythms by how you feel about what you're reading.
And what you do with your sleep cycle, and how much melatonin you swallow down, and how much antihistamine you take to knock yourself out, and all those good things. To mention things that I've tried to use to deal with jet lag and stuff.
So does that mean you're not going to sign my Ouija board?
But of course I'll sign your Ouija board.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take you too far off topic, but you were sort of inviting me to say, what have you been up to? So I thought I'd at least mention it.
No, there's a doctor that my wife and I actually follow closely. He's the vaccination. He's a pediatrician that advocates immunization, because there's a lot of anti-vax people out there.
Yes. It sounds like this physician and I would be very much in accord. I take it he doesn't think much of the anti-vax position. I certainly don't.
Yeah, he's completely against it.
I suspect he and I would see eye to eye pretty completely.
Right. Yeah, because my wife is a nurse practitioner in neonatal care, so she sees a lot of this quite a bit.
I take it she shares what I would call an evidence-based and science-based view of that sort of thing.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, how to say it? It shouldn't be a matter of faith, and it shouldn't be a matter of belief, and it shouldn't be a matter of even of political ideology, left, right, center, or whatever. It should be a matter of what are the facts? What does the evidence show? Of course, people will argue about that.
Well, at this point, they can kind of see it with their own eyes because there's a measles outbreak right now in Portland because of people not vaccinated.
And that's an aspect of what I would call for want of a better word, it's a strong term, but I would say that's a criminal aspect of the anti-vax movement. The fact that it's resulted in children getting measles, and worse yet, occasionally they'll even die of it, and they'll certainly get very sick and can be harmed by it.
Marty, I am high-functioning Asperger's, or Asperger's. I never know the right way to say it. And I was vaccinated, but I couldn't connect one to the other. I have no clue why I'm the way I am, but I don't blame it on vaccination.
It would be a terrible thing if you or anyone else had your personality altered or curtailed in some way by a medical manipulation. And that sometimes happens in medicine. People do make mistakes. Bad things sometimes do happen, and that would be a terrible thing. But as far as the evidence in this case is overwhelming that whatever shaped you in that fashion, it wasn't a vaccination. I wouldn't have known from my chat with you. But
and I don't believe that being Asperger's at my level is such a bad thing. I mean, it kind of shaped my career in computers. If not for that, I never would have gotten computers.
Yes.
There's one of the things are you aware that recently they changed the DSM, the Holy Bible of psychiatric and psychological diagnoses, and they either attempted or they actually did eliminate Asperger's, and now it's all autism. It's autism spectrum.
Right.
And to this day, I regard that as a very poor decision on their part. Never mind the fact that no doubt Asperger's and autism are part of some large spectrum. I see no reason to question that. But the fact of the matter is that when we look at reality, when we look at anything, medicine, love, science, art, anything, there's a point where a quantitative change becomes qualitative. And the difference between Asperger's or very mild autism and severe life-crippling autism is qualitative. It's overwhelming. And I think that it's appropriate there be a different word for it. Never mind the fact it's part of the same spectrum. I don't think it should be called the same thing. So I was very disapproving of that change in the DSM. Talk about going far afield from CoCo discussion. But I don't know whether you folks either care or whether you'd agree or not agree. But that was something I remember when they did that. Considering that a number of those people who are close to me and near and dear to me would one way or another, I guess, be called in some one way to one extent Asperger's. I was upset when they did that. I didn't like that. I don't know how you folks would feel about it, but that was my reaction.
It doesn't bother me in the least.
All right, that's interesting to hear. Cool.
I also want to mention too, concerning going off topic. It's not a problem when we're interviewing somebody. We're interviewing them as a person.
Yeah.
And CoCo is part of your life, but it's not your whole life. So there's no problem going off on, what else you're doing, what else you believe, what else,
Exactly.
Hey guys,
put it another way. I didn't want to monopolize it though. Anyway,
but it's your interview. It's an interview.
Hey guys.
Yeah, Rick.
My battery's about to run out, so if I disappear, that's where I went.
Okay.
But, Marty, I definitely want to catch up with you on quite a number of things. So,
what part of the world are you in these days, Rick?
I'm one of the frozen chosen up in snowy Minnesota.
Aha! Wait, what part of Minnesota?
A little bit south of the Twin Cities.
Yeah, Okay, so you're not going to drop by next weekend, I take it.
Unfortunately, no. I'll be flossing my parakeet that week.
Yeah.
Yes, well, I have fond memories of Rodent Park.
Yes.
Marty, can I pass your phone number on to Rick in a private chat so
Of
he
course.
can have it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh,
all right.
of
So I'll send you his number because
Hey,
we
Marty,
had to,
you have my email, right?
I don't believe I do. Let me find a spare spot on the wall and
Yeah.
get a can of spray paint here.
Right.
Yeah, Marty and I had to communicate over landlines a couple of times before we can get the computer thing going. So, yeah.
And Steve, I'll let me give all of you my email if anyone wants it, and certainly in particular Steve and Rick, especially, being old friends. My email has been for many years. I think you've even used it as such. Marty Goodman, MartyGoodman at SBC, that's Sam Bravo Charlie, SBCglobal.net.
Yep. Had it already. Okay.
And
mine is webmaster at rickadams.org.
Webmaster at Rick RickAdams.org. Very good. Very good.
Yeah, I'm going to probably have Stevie pass your current phone number to me too, because I really missed our conversations.
For what it's worth, I believe I'm still listed, and if you just ask for me in San Pablo, California, you probably will at least get what still is my so-called landline. Of course, it's not really an analog line; it's a VoIP through my little box, but we still call it a landline because it ain't got text and it's a phone in the house.
I've got an old Radio Shack phone that I've managed to keep the batteries in there, and I've got phone numbers in there from 35, almost 40 years ago.
Oh my!
And I think your number might be in there. I'm going to have to compare it to see if it's the same one.
If it is in there, it has not changed.
Yep. The area code might have changed.
You know what? There was an area code change for the East Bay, but that was an awfully long time ago. We've been area code 510 for a hell of a long time. There was one time when all of San Francisco was 415, and then the East Bay split off and became 510, but that was quite a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, my Brooklyn number is area code 718, which is considered a prestige area code because it got all filled up, and now they're using some other more modern area. You know how it is if you have one of the old area codes, it supposedly confers some status. And my parents got it in 1968, and I still have it.
Prior to 718, it was all 212.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Prior to 718, all of the city was 212.
That's right. But the split to 718, again, was it was in the early 60s or late 50s. I forget which, but it was a while back.
I think the new area code is 978.
For Brooklyn?
For Brooklyn.
That 978 was New Jersey.
No.
I can't speak to that. I really don't know.
They're overlaying so many area codes over the same area codes. It's getting ridiculous.
Yeah, Jersey was 201, and mine is 917.
When I was a kid, my phone number was Greenwood 5 9014.
There you go.
Sure, it wasn't Transylvania 65000.
I thought it was only 4 digits there, Ron.
You remember the old rock and roll song, Beechwood 55789?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Some of us are old enough to remember it.
And the one with Jenny.
With
8675309. Yes.
That one, yeah.
Yeah, Jenny. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then there's the Hee-Haw BR549.
BR549, yeah.
Then there's the 6809. So do you know, did you back in the day, did you ever have thoughts about the 6309 and the implications of it being faster, or were you out of it by then?
I think I even had a 6309.
Oh.
Correct me if I'm wrong. This was an Hitachi processor that basically was a version of the 6809, but I'm trying to remember, it was it was lower power.
Yep.
And I don't remember the part about it having a higher cycle rate, but it may well have it. Did I take it?
Yeah, it had extra instructions, extra registers, block memory moves, native mode that ran 10 to 15% faster. A lot of instructions are 1 or 2 cycles faster.
And it was also totally backward. You could drop a 6309 into the CoCo, I think, and it would happily run and wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah, Richard's a guru doing most of those for us.
Huh. So some of you folks have used the 6309.
Yeah. Currently have it.
I have.
We have, yep.
Believe it or not, they got a version of OS 9 that runs on the 6309. How much faster, Curtis?
Depending what you're doing, it's anywhere from between 50% to 300 to 400% faster.
That's substantial.
Yeah.
I mean, if you'd said 10%, I would have said, oh well, but that's substantial. That makes a real difference. So as I said, I think I even had one. I may even have popped one into a CoCo on one or another occasion. All the CoCo 3s I had sockets for their processor before I got done with them.
Is Nick on the call? I don't see.
Excuse me?
Nick Marentes?
Marentes?
Yeah, he's here.
Yes, I'm.
Yeah, he's there upside down.
Nick is working on one of the first games that is going to be 6309 native.
I don't know if it's the first game, but it's one of them, and I think Chet as well online is planning on one too.
Mm-hmm. Are there any others? Because I don't know of any.
Yeah, Roger Taylor did.
Roger Taylor did
Hyper,
some.
Which is there's a couple like Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Remix that actually kick in.
Right.
Yes, nothing else. But and Nitrous 9 was a rewrite. Well, there was 2 609 OS 9 upgrades. There was Power Boost by Chris Burke, and you might remember that one, Marty, because it came out a few months before ours did. And then Nitrous 9, which came out in '92. Which was rewriting the whole thing to run in native mode, and it's just been going on ever since. So we keep speeding it up.
Now, as I mentioned, and I guess a number of you folks have as well. I've socketed the 6809 on my CoCos, but that's a non-trivial thing to do. It takes a bit of time and effort and care, and even the average light duty tinkerer would find that somewhat intimidating. I know it took me a while to get to the point where I had the skill to do it and feel comfortable about doing it. But to run these things, you do have to socket your processor if you're running it on a native CoCo.
Yeah. But we have a couple of hardware people, Richard Lubieski being one, Mark Marlette at Cloud9 being another, that actually would do this as a service.
I remember at one Rainbow Fest, I gave a demonstration of socketing a processor. I was somewhat cavalier about it and damn near botched it up, but I managed to pull it off.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know anyone who does it, but Chris Hawk once published an article on how to piggyback the 6309 on top of the 6809.
Ooh.
Solder it.
But you're saying that he gave a means of, in effect, with a signal to 1 or 2 pins, disabling the 6809.
No, I think it was the power pin. You would just bend up the power pin, and you'd clip the power pin on the 6809, and you'd bend them up and use a switch, and you could switch between them by power.
Nasty.
Or the other.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'd be concerned about that the circuitry might somehow mess with those delicate signals on the various pins, but you're saying it didn't. Cool. Interesting.
Well, he did an article on it. I don't know anyone who's done it, but he did do an article on that.
Yeah, that's something I wouldn't recommend doing anyway, because if one of the processors malfunctioned, it's a nightmare to try to remove both of those out of there.
Yeah. Well, Richard does it very easily. He's very practiced at it.
I mean, it's certainly quicker and easier. You can do it from the top of the board, but I would side strongly with Steve that I just feel uncomfortable about hearing that.
I've even got 60.
Yeah, if somebody writing an article on Rainbow is one thing, whether it's a proper thing to do.
Yeah.
You remember back in the day, Marty, some of the articles that people write, and you would kind of go, huh?
I think I may have been more vocal than that.
I'm trying to keep this so we don't have a red flag on the YouTube video.
I have 6309s not only in my CoCo 3, but in several of my CoCo 1s and CoCo 2s.
Ah.
Yeah, and there is a version of Nitrous 9 for CoCo 1 and 2 that's actually got some use, not as much as the level 2 one, because that's one we've been working on since 92, but level 1 even has some optimization for it.
But there is a board that's called the Moo. Is that what it's called? The cartridge that you plug in and it adds RAM, and they're in OS 9 or Nitrous 9 drivers for it.
Yeah, that's one from Europe.
The one from Europe, yeah. And that also works on the Dragon.
Yeah, it's 512K on a CoCo 1, 2, or a Dragon.
How many people have seen a Dragon? I had one in my house for a while.
I have two of them. I have Bob Rosen's prototype of the Dragon.
Oh my!
And Ron's holding up his.
Marty, Bob Rosen was so cheap that when he got the prototype from Tano, once I was done reviewing it and decided he was going to sell them, he pulled all the chips from the prototype Dragon and sold them on his Rainbow ad. All the chips. He UV erased the EPROMs for the basic and sold blank EPROMs.
Well, he was like anybody else back in New York that was selling VCRs. If you wanted the remote control, you had to pay extra for that, even though it was shipped in a box.
The next time I saw you in person, Marty, was in Bob Rosen's living room on Woodhaven Boulevard.
Oh, really?
Across the street from the Radio Shack he used to be the manager of.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, Bob Rosen lived in Howard Beach.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
I remember visiting him.
And Colorware was right down Jamaica Avenue from there, as was Zebra Systems and Alpha Products. We were those three companies were within a block of each other on Jamaica Avenue.
I'm not sure I was even aware of that at the time. That's interesting. That's very interesting.
Yep. And Bob, do you remember Bob's nickname? We used to call him Cheap Dog.
Candidly, I don't recall that, but I mean, there was a time when I was very fond of Bob. There was a time when I felt like, to one extent or another, I was not being entirely treated right, what have you. But I think we all agree.
A lot of people. He did it to us at Zebra. He sold us the license to every Spectrum Projects program.
Mm-hmm.
I went crazy duplicating dozens of them and made new manuals and duplicated discs. And we went to Rainbow Fest, and all the software authors came up to our table and said, "Why are you selling my software? You don't have a license to sell it." And I said, "We bought it from Bob Rosen." And he said, "Well, Bob Rosen doesn't own this software, and he didn't have the rights to sell you the license."
Sadly, that's a really believable story. Sadly.
Luckily, we only paid him $2,500, so with the stuff we could sell, we recovered our investment.
Does anybody know what happened to Bob? I don't.
He moved back from San Jose, married a mail-order bride from some Asian website, and opened up a company called Spectrum Sports, where he sold sports memorabilia. And then that disappeared, and he disappeared, and I haven't heard from him in 25 years.
Okay, well, his trail is a little more fresh with you than with me.
Well, you remember when Rosen came out to Silicon Valley, he thought it'd be great, and then he realized, I'm going to have to drive a car?
Right.
Yeah, it's like, okay, wake up. You see all these movies about the California lifestyle, and all revolves, it's around a car. He didn't know how to drive. And
when I graduated from college and was on my way off to San Diego for medical school, 6 months before I left, I knew I have to learn to drive. I didn't know how to drive, having grown up in New York. My parents went to their graves never owning or ever having learned how to drive a car. And that is not unusual for many New Yorkers.
Exactly.
Lives in New York. And I certainly hadn't a clue about driving, but I knew, okay, I'm going to California. I'm going to have to A, know how to drive, and B, have a car if I'm going to survive there. So, I just made a point of doing so. And a friend of mine kindly offered to teach me to drive on one condition, that I that I agree to learn to drive a standard, a clutch-based car. So I did.
Now, when you're in Southern California and you're riding around just touring, enjoying it, how many wheels are underneath you? Because I remember you had some interesting bikes.
I still have, although I don't ride much anymore, recumbent bikes. The bikes that I ride are in fact bicycles. They're two-wheeled machines. But what I found interesting, a very, very dear friend of mine who makes his living selling recumbent bicycles was telling me that over the last 5 years, there's been a major change in the market and in the kind of recumbent bikes that people buy. He said up until about 5 years ago, his business was almost entirely two-wheeled recumbent bikes. But in the last 5 years, it's become up to 75% recumbent trikes, three-wheel vehicles, and that apparently is what most people who buy recumbent human-powered vehicles, for want of a better name, bicycle, but they're tricycles, of course. That's what people are buying now. It's very interesting. They're remarkable machines, and the good ones they don't give away. You want to get yourself a good German Velotechnik, and you want to go for front and rear suspension. You can be out $6,000 real easy. So
wow.
that's not your casual, knockabout machine that you leave on the street and go in the store for half an hour and come back and hope we'll be there.
Right. No, that's the thing is there's these islands in your life that you are very knowledgeable, very strong about. You know a lot about the stuff. And that's the thing is your whole thing is you have lots of islands. Yeah, and
it's an archipelago.
And the thing is, we could sit down for 2 hours at a CoCo Fest and we would be talking about the stuff and you'd bring up different aspects of your life and not once would you repeat a subject. There was always something new and fascinating about Marty Goodman.
Well, it's not me, it's the world. We live in an interesting world.
And you sure partake in it.
Yeah, you're an interesting person in an interesting world, Marty. I've never forgotten you. I always think of you kindly.
That's very kind of you to say that. I mean, the main thing that would make me happy is if I bring either happiness or at least, or better yet, interest to somebody.
Well, I know from when we visited with you and Tim and I came up and we helped you move stuff around. We talked for I don't know how many hours at your house, and we went out for supper and stuff. It was like Steve said, never covered the same subject twice, not even the same remotely related subject twice. It went the entire gamut all over the place, and it was incredibly interesting.
Are you still locally in the Bay Area?
Oh no, I never was. I was actually down there visiting.
Oh, you were just visiting. I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Yeah. Tim was local down to the area. Obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Tim again. I haven't seen him in a while. We should go out and have a bite to eat.
Yeah, I invited Tim to be on the call tonight since Tim kind of arranged this for us. But ironically, Tim is he responded to my email. He goes, "Listen, I'm in Miami right now, and I'm getting on a cruise for 7 days."
No wonder he didn't answer the phone when you gave me that number that wouldn't link me to this conference, and I was hesitant to call you back because you said, "Gee, I'm real busy with the conference. I got to go." So the next thing I did was try to call Tim, but he didn't answer.
Okay. So I was wanting to I was hoping he could be here because he was kind of the catalyst to make all this happen for us to get you on.
Well, that explains why he didn't answer.
Yeah.
We'll have to save him for part 2.
Excuse me? I'm sorry.
We'll have to save Tim for part 2 of your interview.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
well,
definitely.
he'll be back, one hopes.
Well, the question is, are you going to be back?
I understand this is a regular event on a weekly event. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. You don't have to make it weekly, but we just love having you on.
Well, that's awful nice, Steve. Especially for my old nemesis here.
And I still know the Luigi guys. They still carry around the pipe.
I actually use that phrase now with others. I say, I may call up my friend Luigi, the famous Sicilian orthopedic surgeon. I believe he's got a special this week. Kneecaps.
We could make this into a mud wrestling event.
Tonight on a very special CoCoTALK.
I have to confess, part of that line I got from an old Rockford Files show. Anyways, yeah, I would be delighted to drop by again. Steve or Steve or Rick, if you like, feel free to drop me an email or a phone message or something reminding me, because I am juggling a lot of balls, and it's possible I may forget the time or date. But if you give me a reminder, an email or something like that, there's a much higher chance that I'll remember to log on. Now that I have the right number, Steve.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
I probably miswrote it. It's probably my fault.
We used to do it in the middle of the day. Well, for me, it was the middle of the day. We were doing it at 2 p.m., which would have been about 11 a.m. your time, right? So this was our first time doing our main program late in the evening, and so it was kind of an experiment. And I would say this experiment has paid off for tonight anyways. And I didn't promote the fact you were going to be here, Marty, because I wanted it to be a surprise, and you weren't sure if you were going to make it. So had I promoted, hey, tune in tonight for Marty Goodman, we probably would have got a lot of people tuning in. But for this being a regular show, we had 36 live viewers. At one point in time, we had 20 people in the panel. You know, it's coming up on midnight for me here in Florida. So I would say this has been a pretty good show for changing the time. And we might keep it. We'll have to wait and see, you know.
You folks have been really nice and you've really given me a very kind welcome, and I felt very, very good. Steve, I don't know if Steve conveyed this, but while I certainly had used Skype and VoIP and stuff in years past, I hadn't been using it for many years. I had even taken Skype off my computer just because I wasn't using it. And when Steve said, well, you know, you got to use Zoom to join this conference, I said, what is this Zoom? I don't know if I want some alien software on my computer or what, blah, 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 blah. And you know, Steve was just patient with me, and eventually I broke down and said, oh, all right, I'll download the damn thing and figure out how to use it. Maybe next time I'll even get me a webcam. Who knows? I may stick another toe in the 21st century.
Let me know. I'll send you out one of the 20 or 30 ones I've got laying around.
1633 Bay Vista. Yeah, so drop me a line and email, Steve. I'll give you my address. Yeah, I was asking your namesake, the other Steve, whether there's any recommendations on what webcam to get, and what Steve said was, you know, damn near anyone will work. It's not a big deal.
I hope I'm not going to get anyone in trouble by saying this, but on the Color Computer Archive, both Graphicom and Graphicom Part 2 are up there.
That's fine. I know of no one who would feel ill about that. Indeed, anyone I could think would be delighted to hear that.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to see if the manuals are up there, because they were very extensive manuals that.
Yes, there were.
That came with them.
But if they are, they're certainly welcome. At this point, there's apart from me, there's one person alive who can speak to it, and I'm sure he would be perfectly delighted to learn that.
Good. Yeah, the manuals are up there. They're also in the
cool.
Area.
Cool. Oh, a reminder to all, in case you're not aware, or at least all who are in North America, since not everyone online is in North America here. But as you may know, there's going to be a total lunar eclipse tomorrow night. Pacific time, it's between 7:30 and about 11 o'clock. It's going to be iffy for me to see it, because we have a storm blowing in and into the Bay Area, and it's not clear it'll be blown out in time for me to enjoy the eclipse. But if you are in North America and have clear skies tomorrow night, yeah, lunar eclipse is a neat thing to see. You don't have to stand out there for all 3 hours watching it, but watch the shadow touch the moon and look at the moon when it's fully covered in blood red. It's a cool thing to do.
Yeah, Ron Delvaux on the panel here is actually our resident astronomer. He's actually pretty good sized telescopes and stuff in his yard. So
I have an observatory in my backyard, and I'll be broadcasting it to Italy for people in Europe to see.
Cool. Where are you going to get good weather?
You were supposed to have little puffy clouds here and there. Not too bad. Today was great. I wish it'd be like today tomorrow. We'll see.
It'll be real iffy for me. I've been following Weather Underground, and there's this big ass storm that's blowing in, and I each time I check, the damn thing seems to be dragging its feet more and more, and so it's looking like it's going to be lingering during the eclipse. Have you ever had the pleasure of seeing a total solar eclipse?
No.
Have you considered chasing after one someday?
No, not important to me.
Okay.
I'm more into astrophotography, deep sky objects. The sun's okay. Yeah, it's interesting, but and even this lunar eclipse is cool. I've seen 4 or 5 of them, but it's they happen on a regular basis.
One of the nice things about a total solar, it's not necessarily the most knock you on your ass visually spectacular, but from the point of view of being an astronomer or a scientist, whatever, it's neat. Is you look up in the sky and there's this totally black disk where the sun used to be, and the sky is dark enough so you see Mercury, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter hanging in a line on either side of the sun, and suddenly in the middle of the day you see the sun and the planets in the plane of the ecliptic, and you really get this sense, wow, I'm in a solar system that's in a disk, and there are the planets hanging out there, and I can see them and the sun. That aspect of a total solar eclipse I've always enjoyed.
Well, the thing that I've always found most interesting is how nature works during the solar eclipse, because you get the dogs starting to do the evening howl. You've got the birds flying home as if it's night and everything. And then all of a sudden the sun comes back, and they're just also freaked out.
As a matter of fact, our species used to get pretty freaked out by the damn thing.
Something's eating the sun.
My favorite aspect of a solar eclipse, though, was actually help prove the theory of relativity correct.
Yep.
They were able to observe observing a starlight near the sun and observe the light get bent, if I recall.
Yeah, by the gravity of the sun. Yeah.
Yep.
Or rather have the light go around that dish in space time created that is the gravitational field.
Yeah.
There's a gravity well there.
And there is. And there is. Now, the next thing would be to catch a mini black hole. But anyway.
Oh, they'll do that over there in Europe with the collider.
Actually, now they're talking about building a new one that's much bigger, too.
Yeah, the bigger collider.
I just heard a news story about that. I think it's just this morning or yesterday. And what the skeptical side of that, they were saying, well, we're not sure we're going to find something like a Higgs boson, whether there's anything else out there or not. So we could spend all this money and not find a new particle. Oh well.
And it's like going from the mini MPI to Jim Brain's 16-port MPI. It's just a magnitude of scale there. So.
Oh, there's now a 16-port MPI.
Well, it's 2 of them put together.
It's 2 8-ports.
2 8-ports put together, yeah. So if you didn't have enough things to plug in, or not slots, now you've got a multi-pack that can handle everything.
I remember I pretty much filled up my multi-pack. I mean, you had your disk controller and you had your RS-232 card, and let's see, what else did we have? We had an EEPROM controller, and we had
hard drive controller, speech sound pack, Orchestra 90.
There you go.
Stereo sound.
Well, there's a Mega Mini multi-pack that has come out. It's a 4-slot multi-pack, but also has 2 RS-232 ports on it and a sound chip.
And external power.
Yeah.
Well, the thing to do is to put as much as you can on the one board. That would be the way to go if you're going to be doing that.
That just released a module that you plug into the side, and it lets you take a mini USB adapter and plug it into your PC for drive wire, so you don't even have to cobble up a serial port cable.
Oh wow!
Wow.
There's
Rick showing his cartridge there, his release.
Yeah, bomb threat, nice.
Mm-hmm. With the artwork is done by my son, Joel, who he surprised me with this design. He researched old Tandy cartridges and exactly replicated the whole trade dress, the look of the cartridge, the color set involved. there was all kinds of stuff that he figured out.
And that's
I can tell you from that looks authentic.
Yes.
It has a catalog number too, doesn't it?
Yes, it's a fake catalog number, but that's all right.
It's a newly made. It's not 3D printed. That's a newly made plastic injection cartridge.
Wow.
And the only thing that I changed was it has a Tandy logo. Where is that? It's right there.
Yes.
And so he had the Tandy logo, and I changed it so in small, tiny print on the top and bottom of that, it says, "A game for your Tandy color computer." To keep us out of legal trouble.
Well, I think Tandy has enough troubles now that I doubt they'll be allocating funds to go after you.
Yes,
Does anyone
correct.
have a picture of the Mega Mini multi-pack to show Marty?
Yeah, I have it queued up in the news articles. So yeah.
He would be surprised at how tiny it is compared to the original.
Is someone able to show it on screen?
Yeah, let me see if I can find it here in one of my news articles.
Jason's showing one.
Has Jason got one up?
No, I got bomb threat up.
Okay, bomb threat.
The 2-port. That's the original.
Yeah, there's the 2 slot.
Okay, that's the mini MPI.
And I've got the 4-port.
That's the 4-port. I have a Glenside hard disk controller that has 2 connectors on it.
Yeah, I got one of those.
That way, could you hold up the or put on the screen the hard disk controller once again?
Sure,
just
Marty.
Curious. Interesting. So you're is one of those a little processor or I mean the original Tandy disk controller was all. No, even the original Tandy.
It all looks like discrete logic to me because it's a simple IDE interface. But this has been so obsoleted by the CoCo SDC. I just kind of have it to have it, but not really to use it. The CoCo SDC is so superior in every way.
Does anyone have a visual representation of the CoCo SDC? Or?
Yeah, I just pulled up a picture of the new Mega Mini MPI. So
there you go.
This whole thing here is the 4-slot MPI. On the far right is the CoCo SDC.
Aha.
On the far left is a cartridge that Ed Snyder came up with that's called the PSG, Programmable Sound Generator, which is a custom sound chip with 2 Atari joystick adapters.
Huh.
And then
There's my CoCo SDC, yeah.
Yeah, there's Rick Adams, CoCo SDC right there. Yeah. Well, actually, I've got one I could hold up too. I've got the actual CoCo.
Do you have
SDC.
a bare one?
Yeah, you see what's going on here, Marty, is there's been a renaissance. Just everybody's coming out with stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't seen this much stuff for the CoCo since the first or second last annual CoCo Fest. I mean, it's just like.
Let's see if I can pop mine over. There you go.
It's getting expensive.
Yeah.
Here, I've got one that's easier to open.
Yeah, there's also someone's doing an FPGA implementation of the Gimme chip.
Yeah.
Really?
I'm not sure if you can see my camera, Marty, or not.
Yes, no, I see it very clearly.
So that's the CoCo SDC cartridge. So when you look at it from the side here, that's the slot where you would put in the SD card.
That's a fairly sophisticated board there. You got a bunch of floating gate arrays and cool stuff. Yeah. Somebody put in a lot of work on that darn thing.
And there's a button on there so you can put multi-discs in.
Yeah, there's a little button here you can press. So, and there's a little blinky light here. So,
may I ask when that became available for purchase? How long ago? Roughly.
Yeah, 2014, I think. I'm trying to remember.
Really? Okay. Interesting.
And the cases that you're seeing there, Marty, those are 3D printed.
3D printed. Yeah.
No.
This is
not injection molded.
Yeah. So this is the John Strong case. That's most people have. The first generations were plexiglass, and I think Tim Lindner came up with the plexiglass cases. This was the John Strong case where you actually had to reach in and use a pen point to push in the button to switch discs. This particular one here has actually got a little switch on it. That's kind of part of the thing where you can just kind of push the switch in to press the button, press the tab. Yeah. So
surely any tinkerer who didn't like the recessed button could have modified that.
Yeah.
Marty wrote an article way back in the day on how to modify the silver multi-pack for the CoCo 3 before the upgraded PAL chips came in.
I remember I got involved with multi-packs. There were a couple of interesting oddities. The new multi-pack had certain addressing issues that the old one didn't. It's been long enough I can't immediately rattle off what it was, but I recall there were certain addresses as I recall, that you couldn't get at or something like that because of the way it was decoded.
Well, they also had to do some changes so that it would work properly with the gimme chip on the CoCo 3.
Right. In fact, that was it. They were trying to make it not use addresses that were also gimme addresses. That's right. So you're saying there actually is an effort to resurrect the gimme chip?
Yeah, an FPGA gimme that not only replicates the original gimme functionality, it adds extra video modes, lowercase.
Now you're thinking of the CoCo VGA.
No, it's going to be, lowercase in the gimme. Well, I guess the gimme had lowercase.
Yeah. CoCo 3 has the lowercase.
Well, the CoCo VGA is a product for the CoCo 1 and 2 that adds VGA output and lowercase.
Yeah.
And 64 column mode.
And 64 column mode.
And the Gimme X is also going to add VGA to the CoCo 3.
Yes.
And they're actually putting in some stuff too, like they're basing on the CoCo FPGA design, which actually has stuff like bit blitting and extra high res modes and extra palettes and everything else too. So it's actually extending the Gimme as well.
The community of people who are, as opposed to those who are designing these, which obviously is going to be a very small community with the knowledge and time to do that, but the community of people using these, Steve was telling me that you're looking at numbers that are approaching 1,000. Am I correct in that?
How many members are on the CoCo group?
2,500. Yes, 2,500 members in Facebook. I'm not sure they're all completely active, but yeah.
Right.
Yes, 700 of these CoCo SDCs have been sold, so that's an idea of hardware.
That's impressive.
But we're
you're now making me feel bad that a few years ago I gave the last of my stuff to Tim Lindner. I suppose one can always reacquire it.
You bet.
Well, you could also just simply enjoy living through the Facebook and these shows here too, and like that. I mean, we do cover it all.
For that matter, I mean, there's new versions of OVCC coming out now, so you can run it on multiple platforms, and MAME's emulation is really good too. It emulates some of even the new hardware that's being designed at the moment too. So you can use it as a test.
Also, telling me how OS 9 is now running on lots of different hardware.
Yeah, the current OS 9. Yep.
Yeah, Chat's been working on taking a lot of the stuff that's being developed and throwing in main and doing the other stuff. He's been really busy with this stuff.
Now the 6809 hasn't been made in a long time. Replenishing the supply of that would be kind of a daunting task.
Well, there are cycle exact FPGA implementations of the 6809.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my!
And 6309s are very common now. They're like less than $5 when they're completely compatible.
You just got to make sure that you get them from a legitimate dealer. I've seen some of them that are bad polls that people have sold. Yeah.
Bad polls or relabels.
Exactly.
I may have a tray of 68 B09s somewhere. If folks are interested in that, I'll have to take a look. But if someone has a use for those, if they have not somehow otherwise disappeared, and someone can give them a good home, I'll be happy to
that would be Richard.
Yeah,
definitely sound to Richard. Richard will make sure they go to a good place.
I have to make sure I still have them. I know I had a tray full of them, and I can't. I'll have to check. I'll have to go trotting downstairs at some point, and I know exactly where to look. They're either there or not. I'll check.
Hey, I think Tim got some of your chips too, so I can't remember which ones he got anymore.
At one point,
I
had a whole bunch of 68 B21s. The PIA chips and stuff.
Yeah, someone on the CoCo list was looking for PIAs and looking for the T1 video chip, the 6847 T1.
That one is a bit rare.
That would be rare. I don't recall ever having a stock of those.
Yeah, those are titanium.
But I think they're working on a CoCo VGA that'll work in the T1 systems.
They already did.
Oh, they did?
It's done. I have one. It works great.
Oh my! Oh my!
So I haven't gotten around to getting a CoCo VGA yet, but that's on my list.
Steve Marty, hardware is getting so
You
easy.
have to wait,
to
Ron.
design.
Seems like it.
Marty, look at Dan Loyle's screen there. He's showing the RAM upgrade, the boomerang.
Yeah, I just want to show off Richard's handiwork.
What? You mentioned the boomerang before. What does it do for the CoCo?
It's a 512K memory board.
Well, it's now
2
2
meg.
meg.
It's a
2 meg, 2 meg. Yeah, sorry.
So
My bad.
make sure your CoCo comes back.
Yeah, well, that little wire is going to a board in the 68 or 9 socket that it adds the extra address lines.
Yeah. If you remember the disto upgrades, Marty, it's basically a very shrunk down, much cheaper, cooler running version of that.
Yeah.
And much smaller.
We've got some really good hardware designers out there that, they think about it and boom, the product is done. I mean, it's amazing how fast Jim and Richard are in coming up with this stuff.
Richard, the price, what is it, $50, $49.95?
49.
$49.95 for both the 2 meg upgrade and the DAT board, which is also adds other functionality.
Did
Like
he
a
That's
turbo-
phenomenal.
Did he know Paul Barton?
things.
And that upgrade that you're talking about, is that the one that used static RAM?
Uses SRAM.
Yes, static SRAM, static RAM. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it would never fit in 2 meg DRAM. No, that would be too hot.
That'd be the disto board.
I just saw the Performance Peripherals 512K board. It was so hot, it was literally melting the case on my CoCo 3.
Wow.
Well, I from the very start, when I first put a 512K board in my CoCo 3, my first thought was, there's got to be some way to do this with static RAM. This thing is too hot. But that's as far as I got, just the thought. I'm delighted to see someone else took it a little further.
Marty, did you ever have any of the Tony DiStefano design 1 or 2 meg upgrades?
No, I had some of his disk controllers, but I don't recall. No, I don't think I had his memory upgrades.
Did you know Paul Barton?
Say again, please.
Did you know Paul Barton only on Saturday night?
I have to confess, I think I'm drawing a blank. I don't.
Curtis,
Paul would have been between when Marty kind of went out of the CoCo world and
okay.
Paul was doing.
By the way, I think I remember I said there was this guy who magically introduced me to the CoCo world. His first name was Curtis, if that means anything to anybody.
That wasn't me.
It probably doesn't, but it just popped into my head. His first name was Curtis. Anyway.
Wow. Did you know Frank Hogue or Hogg, however you say
Well,
his
I
name?
certainly knew of him. I mean, I'm sure we exchanged words at CoCo Fest, friendly ones, no doubt.
Yeah,
but I don't have much of a sense of him because we didn't seem to hang out in the same circles. I mean,
How about you and Dennis Bathory Kits? Because you guys were both into hardware.
Dennis is another matter. Dennis and I had at least some degree of affinity. A large part of Dennis's life was in the world of music, and
still is,
and that is his identity as a musician. And additionally, how to say this, he and I, what would be the right words to pick here? While certainly our lives were not the same by a long shot, one thing we did have in common was some involvement with and some affinity for the subculture of the late 60s, early 70s, the world of politics, sex, drugs, rock and roll, and that sort of thing. I'm not sure that was like a major identity of Dennis's, but it's certainly something that both he and I had in our lives and had at least somewhat fond memories of. And so we would be on the same wavelength on that sort of thing. I once had the pleasure of visiting him in Vermont. I spent a couple 3 days at his house in Bathory, Vermont. It was a long time ago, a very long time ago, and my recollections of the time are somewhat dim. Other than that, I recall I enjoyed it, and it was a very nice experience.
I think I remember you writing about it in one of the magazines. You were talking about his the Vermont did not have any kind of inspection laws or anything like that, and he did a lot of his own plumbing and electrical work at his house.
That wouldn't surprise me. Dennis is an interesting character because he bridged, normally you don't think of the art types as being particularly good on the highly technical and electronic side, but he was very, very good at that too. So he presented a very interesting character in that respect.
When we interviewed him just a few months ago here. Actually, we should probably try to get the two of you together for a chat at some point. That'd be kind of interesting to have you.
Has Dennis showed up on here?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Neat.
That's what I was going to ask you, Steve, if he knew some of the other people that we've interviewed.
I said I know of Frank, but I can't recall having had much connection. But Dennis, as I said, was kind enough to invite me over to his house on one occasion, and that was really neat. And I can't say I know him. I don't know his soul. I don't know him well as a person, but there was some mild level of affinity that I felt for him when I met him. Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, because you were mentioning like the crossing of the technical and the arts, and I mean he did one demo at CoCo Fest where he had the ambient room, which had all these sensors and it would adjust musical tones as people walked around.
Dennis was very into incorporating his technical knowledge into creating his art, and I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, and we should get the two of you together again because I mean, you guys had some, like you said, you had some affinity for stuff in the '60s and stuff. I think that'd make a fascinating dual interview, kind of like when Rick and Dale had the interview together.
Dennis also created, as you may recall, an EEPROM programmer for the CoCo.
I have one.
All right.
Micro. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Except it didn't boost VCC when it did fast programming.
That's Marty.
Ran on 3 9-volt batteries.
Excuse me?
It ran on 3 9-volt
Oh, that's right.
batteries.
That's right. That too. That was a bit funky. That's right. You're right.
The color burner.
Right.
He also had the lower kit. He did Dynamic Color News magazine for a bit.
Right.
He did his own video mod, his own color video mod.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
And he had cassette tapes too, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Computer Learning Lab. Yeah,
yes, he did.
Marty, you would be interesting to know your monochrome video mod for the CoCo also works rather well on the Timex ZX81 and the 1000 computer.
Oh, cool. It's basically it's happy to take in a composite video signal, and yeah.
And there are people constantly on the Facebook page looking for composite video mods for CoCo, and the schematic for your mod always comes up.
It's a very simple circuit. That's what it's two very generic general purpose little transistors and as I recall, and a couple of resistors. It's just a couple.
I think the monochrome was in rainbow and the color was in hot cocoa.
Okay, yeah. But the monochrome I always like mainly because I was into using my CoCo for word processing and text, and in that context, you really wanted the nice sharpness of a monochrome monitor. For anything else, you wanted color, of course.
My first monitor for my CoCo was a Gorilla Banana monitor.
I remember those. I remember those well.
Private labeled Magnavox.
Do you remember also the Amdec monitors?
Yeah.
Yes, I had one of those too.
Those were they had a very distinctive appearance, both their screen and their shape.
I have a picture of one.
Aha.
It's too bright, probably.
Yeah, it's flaring out a bit, I'm afraid, but yeah.
If we could have the people that are in the peanut gallery on the chat line, if you got any questions for Marty, now would be a good time to type those questions in so we can make sure we can answer them before we have to leave.
Yeah, my brain is just starting to shut down from just sheer exhaustion from the day, and so I've been up since the butt crack of dawn. But then this is great.
Eastern.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Martyism.
Yes. So I don't want this show to end, but I'm not going to be able to keep my eyes open much longer. Not because it's putting me to sleep. It's just my body is falling asleep on me. So
your brain is turning to oatmeal.
Hey, we haven't talked about my joystick adapters either, man.
Oh.
Maybe we'll have to save that for next time. I'm getting a little fried myself, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, it was definitely a joy having you here, Marty. You're welcome to come back. And yeah, I will circulate your phone number and email with Steve Bjork and Rick Adams so they can reach out to you.
Just a quick PS on phone numbers, since you bring it up. Over the years that I published in Rainbow, they never published my phone number, but on several occasions, fairly frequently, I think, they published my address. And it was trivial to look up my phone. My phone number has always been listed. And if you knew what city I was in, it was trivial to look up my phone number. And over the years that I was like sort of, known from Rainbow, et cetera, I guess what I'm saying is CoCo celebrity did not entail abuse of one's phone, is what I'm trying to say. To the extent that I had such anyway. I think on the average, I'd get like, two phone calls a year, 2 or 3. I'm talking about like phone calls out of the blue saying, I looked you up. I read your article in Rainbow. I want to ask you this, that, the other thing. And not a lot. Steve or Rick, did you get people tracking you down? And
yes.
A lot, a little?
Enough that it actually became more annoying than just, this is an interesting little thing to do. No, it just...
So you were more of a target than I.
I actually had somebody send me the cost of a floppy and what it would be to mail it back so he could have a copy of my game because he felt the price that Radio Shack was selling it for was too high.
The infrequent calls I got, the vast majority of them were perfectly reasonable. Somebody was asking a hardware question or this or that. And once in a while I'd get somebody who, I don't know, didn't know what they were talking about or whatever, but it would be so rare. It would be like once a year or something. So, it's something that I could live with.
I've got a hardware problem.
Yep.
Actually, I've been reading one of your articles you wrote. It was the modem pack hack, turning it into an RS-232.
Oh, that was a favorite of mine. I ended up producing a circuit board to facilitate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually was looking. I said, "Man, he has doctor handwriting."
Sometimes my handwriting is quite good. I don't recall what you're referring to there, but what the heck?
Oh, it was hand drawn schematics of your board.
Oh, that's another matter. I don't claim to be an artist.
One thing I wanted to mention, Marty, too. We'd obviously like to have you on for a second part 2 interview here and see if we can try to get Dennis in at the same time. But feel free to drop by anytime if you just want to, hang out for a bit and kind of see what's going on, watch the news. You don't have to be an active, participant type thing, but you can join in for discussions if you want. You don't have to be here for the whole show, etc. So
it's very fun. I don't know enough about Zoom to appear in a stealth fashion, but I suppose I could research it.
Now you have a Facebook page, correct?
Yes and no. I do. I have a Facebook page, but I almost never use it. To the extent that you'll see use on it, it's probably stuff that others have done. I want to be able to log on to Facebook. Every now and then I'll look at other people's pages, but for whatever reason, without and I'm not even sure. To some extent, I can give you a reason. To some extent, I can't. For whatever the reason is, I've sort of avoided Facebook. It's not, if for no other reason than I'm doing so many other things. I didn't want to get, too seduced by that whole world, which apparently has seduced some people.
Well, as far as we go, we have we're quite active on it. And a lot of the information about all these things we were telling you tonight is on there. On the CoCo group, we have an OS9 group, we have CoCo Pi group, we got all kinds of groups that you can get information on whatever. And some of the people here are actively contributing to it. And a distribution of the latest ease of use comes up on there, and other things.
Well, the other thing, too, is if you go into the CoCo group, you're going to find a lot of friends you haven't seen in a long time.
Even more than I see here.
Yes, yes, even more.
Another
Roger Taylor won't be seen on here, but he's a big force out there.
Yeah, I think I told you, Marty, about Discord too, which is something we're on all the time. So it's kind of like an IRC chat and voice client all in one piece of software. And so there's text and voice conversations going on a daily basis all throughout the day on Discord too. So
we regularly get in Discord and chat just like we're doing right now, but it's just audio chat.
And Discord this is something apart from Facebook. This is yet another connectivity thing.
Another client you'd have to install, but again, it's a trusted piece. We're all using it on many platforms.
Give me a chance. You just got me using Zoom.
yeah.
We'll bring you into the modern world.
As you said earlier, 21st century, one step at a time.
One toe at a time, right?
Yeah, and what's good about Discord, it's user contributed as far as money wise. They don't take all your info and sell it off and things like that. So,
well, that's encouraging.
But
I mean, it's voluntary. It's not.
Yeah. Discord is a lot like Genie and Delphi used to be.
Yeah, we've got all different sections you can post in, and we do the audio chats. And the thing is,
it's not one of those things where you leave your house and the NSA calls you up and say, "Hey, you forgot to lock your door."
Right. And you can put it on your cell phone in addition to running it on your PC. By the way, actually, that's the important question. When you sit down at your desk and work on a computer, what computer do you use these days?
I use PCs as a general, but certainly one such as yourself would recognize a particular hardware designation. The machines I use here in California are Dell 8700 XPS 8700s. They use a fourth generation Core i7 in them. I've got 16 gigs of memory, and they're running Windows 7. In my New York apartment, which I moved over to more or less modern computers a little earlier, I'm running a Dell XPS 8300s, which have, instead of fourth, they have second generation Core i7s in them, and I notice no difference. As I understand it, the difference as you go from Gen 2 to Gen 4 is just they run a little cooler or something like that, but they basically work the same.
Okay.
One quick thing I'll share with folks before we all go. How many of you folks out there have had occasion to contend with repairing something that bit the dust due to the capacitor plague or to a failed electrolytic? No? Yes?
I haven't had any.
No, I'm sure Richard Lorbieski has repaired some, but I haven't had the problem.
I was going to say yes.
So I had one CoCo 3 that acted weird, so I went ahead and replaced all the electrolytics, but that's been the extent of that.
Yeah, I had one CoCo 2 that was weird, and I replaced the electrolytics, and it got better. So
on some CoCo 2s, they have a yellow bar that shows up on the side. Then you know
that's not an electrolytic. That's
the 555 timer, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you have to do a repair on it.
Correct.
An Apple authorized technician over 10 years ago, and that used to plague iMacs and Emacs and the iMacs, the flat screen ones and the old tube ones. And we were going full out for the Philadelphia Board of Ed and several publishing companies, repairing systems night and day.
Yeah. But Marty, there's so many people out there fixing their CoCos. There's actually sellers on eBay that sell electrolytic kits.
The whole
for
cap
the CoCo.
kit. Man.
For the CoCo.
Yeah, there's a fellow, I think he's down south somewhere in
Georgia.
In Georgia, another ham radio guy that's selling cap kits.
Well, the nice thing about electrolytics of the cans, they're relatively easy to work on. They've got big leads, they're big components. You can grab them with your fingers. That's a nice thing about them. In the last 3 weeks, I think I've repaired 2 different monitors here, which had dead electrolytics in them. In one case, they they were visibly dead in the standard way, i.e. the tops were blown open and stuff was beginning to dribble out. But in the other case, interestingly enough, the tops were nice and flat and clean and nothing wrong looking from the top side. Then you look at the bottom, and what they've done is blown out their bottom seal.
But wasn't there a company that made capacitors that had a bad batch go out, and they were in monitors mostly?
Well, monitors were one area, but there was. Are you folks acquainted with the term? And you can look this up on Wikipedia. They have a nice article on this. The Great Capacitor Plague.
Wasn't there a lot of bad capacitors that came out in the 90s?
Right. The way the story goes, and I've read various variants of this, but trying to sort of synthesize the various articles on it I've read, and if this isn't exactly right, it's at least in the ballpark of what was going on. Some companies wanted to get into the game making electrolytic capacitors, but it was an industrial secret, a proprietary secret, how to make the goop, the wet goop that sits inside the can of these electrolytic capacitors. So they hired appropriate chemists, or they thought appropriate chemists, and spent a lot of time and energy trying to reverse engineer the chemical goop in it. And they thought they got it right. And so they started mass producing electrolytic capacitors and selling them. And these things found their way into pretty much everything. I mean, monitors, stereos, DVD players. I not too long ago, I replaced a bunch of caps in a DVD recorder I had here, and a friend of mine's DVD player, although I know those are worth 6 cents, if that, but she liked her player, and I opened it up and had to replace the caps to fix it. And in any case, so they sold, literally billions of these caps. I think the period of time was something like 1995 to 2003 or something in that range, give or take a few years. But I mean, a staggering number, literally billions of these caps were sold and found their way into just about every commercial product, and I think even to some military stuff as well, maybe even, although I think
Apple and Dell were hardest hit by that. They were both sued.
Who is this?
Apple and Dell.
Okay. Yeah, I guess the big boys had enough muscle to fight back when they got burned. But the bottom line with this was that they didn't quite reverse engineer the liquid electrolyte quite right. And
the story I heard was they paid someone inside one of the companies to steal the formula. The person left out one of the chemicals that stabilized the capacitors.
That would be consistent with the version of that is not what I heard, but that's completely consistent with the version of the story I heard. That may well be the case. In any case, the problem was the damn things would work fine for a year or two or three sometimes, and then they would fail dramatically. And they would be more likely to fail if they were put under stress. If they were in a high current part of a switching power supply, they would fail sooner.
The magic smoke.
Excuse me?
They'd let out the magic smoke.
Let out the magic smoke. Well, the failure normally would be very visible. You know how electrolytic caps have like a score on the top to relieve pressure in case something bad happens. And typically, not every last time, but typically what you'd see is instead of a nice flat top, the top would begin to look a little bit like a dome. Or in the worst cases, it would dome out heavily and the scored areas would separate and goop would start bubbling out. Those are the dramatic cases. But short of that, you'd often see just a slight bowing, a slight doming. And if you saw even a very slight doming, you want to replace this. Don't hesitate. And
it's a big thing in the Amiga world. On all the Amiga forums on Facebook, recapping is like the first thing you do when you buy a used Amiga.
And we're talking about literally hundreds of millions of devices, be they computers, monitors, home electronics of all sorts, audio systems, bloody everything all over the world was affected on a really staggering scale. So that's the great capacitor plague, as they put it. The versions I heard didn't say that someone stole it, but gave a defective formulation. But that's quite possible. I can believe that.
That's what I heard when I worked for the Apple repair company way back in the day.
That you may well be right. As I say, I don't, some of these things get shrouded in mystery, particularly years in the past, and
kept us in business for a while.
But I mean, I can't list brands, but apparently it affected. There are all different, many different brand names that were stamped on the cap, but they all had the same defective juice inside. So.
Defective juice inside. That's like an alternate Intel thing. Dun 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 dun.
Defective juice inside. Huh? Yeah.
Now you've just listened to capacitor porn.
Capacitor talk, huh? All right.
So you're telling me though that it has affected even the CoCo?
Not the CoCo boards themselves. Actually, are pretty good. It's just because of age. Usually the caps go out. Now, there are some AC filter caps in the Model 3s and 4s that will go out.
The RIFA filters.
Yeah.
Right.
But the CoCo itself, it's been, again, it's most of the failures have been normal because of age.
Well, the CoCo had a linear power supply. As I recall, there was like one big, fat, old, nice electrolytic filter cap and not much else. And within the fairly crude limits of my understanding of the electronics, in the application of the cap in the linear power supply, it wasn't put under a lot of stress. Typically, more likely to fail would be, say, like, the electrolytic caps in a switching power supply were apparently beaten on more heavily and were more likely to give out.
Yeah.
One really common failure in electronics is the supercapacitor in the original Xbox that they used for the clock. So instead of having a battery to back up the clock, they used a supercapacitor, and that would fail after just a few years. And
really?
Leak all over the board.
And it's funny because what I had read about supercaps was, you want to use them instead of batteries because they'll never go bad.
Microsoft did not have much luck with theirs.
Wow.
Interesting. Okay. Well, folks, I should probably retire, and I think most of you are getting tired as well, particularly Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but this has been a great show. This has been a great way to kind of kick off a new time slot. And we didn't cover half the stuff we wanted to cover, and that's okay. There's always next week. No, that's fine. No, that was just we're basically gonna be rehashing.
That means we had a good interview, is what that means.
Yeah, rehash. Yeah. I mean, we had Facebook articles to rehash, which is
no CoCoTALK after dark.
CoCoTALK after hours. After hours.
CoCoTALK. The late CoCoTALK.
Yeah.
Oh no. There's a new version. Sunday morning. Praying for your sins.
Yeah.
I'll be in.
Well, folks, I'm going to say farewell.
All right, Marty, we can't thank you enough for joining us tonight.
Well.
Yes.
I look forward to seeing you again.
Likewise.
Feel free to drop in any time on any of these shows. So you don't have to be the star guest or anything. You can just join in if something interesting is happening from your.
That'll be a relief. Take care.
Take care, Marty.
Have a good one, Marty. Nice.
Good evening, Steve and Rick, and what a pleasure to see you folks again. I look forward to seeing more of you. Okay, let's see. Where's my button here?
And bottom right-hand corner, and leave meeting or something like that.
Yeah, leave meeting, not in meeting.
Meeting in red letters. Take care. I'll see you.
Take care, Marty.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marty.
Bye. Have a good one.
Yeah, too bad he doesn't realize how bad the show really is.
I mean, did you ever give him links to look at previous episodes?
Well, I gave him the website, but yeah, it was.
Did you see the renovations quote in the chat?
Yeah, well, except for the times folks who were not called Marty Goodman opened their mouths. The show was tolerable.
Yeah, to tell you the honest truth, I can't. I forgot how much I enjoy having a conversation with Marty Goodman. Was the highlight of a Rainbow Fest.
Yeah, I never got to talk to him at Rainbow Fest. I mean, I saw him at some of his seminars and stuff, and said hi and stuff, but I didn't know him at all. When Tim Linder and I went up to visit him and kind of go through some of his CoCo stuff, and then he actually took us out for supper afterwards. I mean, we spent 5 or 6 hours talking the whole time that evening, and it was awesome. It was like you said, he has his fingers in so many pies over the years.
Yeah,
different things to talk
Did
about.
anybody pick up on the little thing? You said 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah,
talking with them.
Yeah.
You can spend a lot of time.
Well, I'm glad this came together. This whole thing came together kind of quickly in a span of about a week, So it was after last week's show, I'd gotten the email from Tim Lindner, and I forgot who mentioned it. A few people had mentioned in Discord or something, hey, I've tried to reach out to Marty Goodman, but I haven't heard a response. That might have been Rick.
I did.
And so, but then Tim sent me an email. It was kind of a group email. He says, Marty, meet Steve, Steve, meet Marty, and kind of told him a little bit about us. And then Marty wrote me back and says, I would like to be on the show, but you're probably going to need to call me on my landline first to explain things to me, because I'm not going to, so we've had a handful of conversations and, kind of coaxed him into getting into Zoom, and we did a Zoom test call and then, but I wasn't sure if he was going to make it tonight. So we didn't. Number one, I wanted it to be a surprise, and number two, I wasn't sure, so I didn't promote the fact he was going to be here tonight.
I was surprised when he came on. I read his name and I said it out loud.
Way to be discreet there, Ron.
Yeah.
Marty Goodman.
Yeah.
And do you think the new time slot is a success?
It was just as good as any other show, so I wouldn't call it a failure. I mean, at one point in time, we peaked around 36 live viewers, which is probably better than most days. Most days we're at 24 to maybe 30, 33.
Well, it's a Grant Leighty show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, one thing you'll have to do, Steve, is go through this video and find his "oh, really." There's your soundbite.
Okay.
Yeah, and there was a few of them.
Yep.
We'll have to find that. Yeah. And in the future, if we're going to keep this time slot, I will probably take a nap, after dinner before the show. But today was just been a nonstop day for me with a lot of stuff going on. So I'm a little bit more drained than usual. But I like the time slot. I like having a lot of time to handle not only my home around the house errands, but CoCo errands. I mean, I got a lot done today before the show. So this worked for me. And so we'll just have to wait and see how it resonates with the rest of the world. But I think it was good. And I want to thank everybody in the live chat was here. Trina K was here. Curtis's significant other was here. We had Mark Overholzer, Tom C., Nick Marotta was here. Rob Inman's been out there. Jim Brain, Jason Downs, Adam Coolidge. Lots of people in the live chat. Nick Marotta. Rogelio. I always forget how to pronounce his name properly. Russell Flowers was out there. Tom C. Michael Brandt. Martin Bryce. A name who I'm not used to seeing in the live chat, so that might be a new viewer, Martin Bryce. Robert Sieg was here. That's our MC10 guy. I did have something queued up to show off some of his work, but I'm just too drained. Neil Blanchard was here. Retro Innovations was here. Retro Innovations. Neil Blanchard. CoCo Man. Tom C. Chris Cromwell. One of Nick's neighbors. I think earlier Chris said, Nick, I'm not sure if you saw it, but he goes, hey, Nick Marentes, I'm enjoying the Australian Open tennis match. So
I don't watch it.
Okay.
What time is it there, Nick?
Ken Riker?
It's 10 to 4 p.m.
Oh, afternoon.
Sunday.
Yeah, tomorrow.
In the future.
Yeah. Mikey's in the live chat. Rob Inman.
I hate to bring this up. What about our overtime pay?
Take that up with my accountant, Grant Leighty. So,
do I get a shift differential?
Yes, you do. Yeah, and David Ladd popped in the call. We had some. Dan Loyle was here for the first time. Thank you for being here, Dan. And thank you for all your contributions over the years to the show and to my collection.
You bet.
And L. Curtis Boyle, Al Hartman in the flesh on the live video. Al Hartman is just bringing sexy back with his video feed there. Ron Delvaux, Steve Bjork, Mikey, he likes it. Michael Furman's here. Nick Marentes, Chet Simpson, Richard Lorbieski, king of the bonfire, Jason Downs. We had so many people. So yeah, I think a different time slot, get a few additional viewers or different viewers, maybe a few different people on the panel, mix it up a little bit. Jason, the CoCo man, has been here. Thank you for being here the whole time, Jason. I think I mentioned Steve Bjork. I got us all. All right. Well, we're gonna end the dumpster fire. We're gonna end the train wreck. Yay, Jason Downs. I said thank you, Jason Downs, right? I think I did.
But did you thank Nick Marotta?
Nick Marotta, my spiritual advisor. Nick Marotta.
Dan was loyal.
Dan.
Bump.
Ho. So
I just
yeah.
finished dinner.
And Retro Innovations, Jim's heading.
And Retro Innovations, yes. Nick Marotta and Retro Innovations. The show would be nothing without them.
Apparently, my wife showed up from Hong Kong. She said I was having fun.
Oh, yeah.
I sent the link to her.
And earlier, Al Hartman had made the comment about Bob Rosen, how he got a mail order bride, and Rob Emmons like, when we start talking about mail order brides, that's when we know we've crossed over into the After Dark version of the show.
Well,
Good stuff.
Who else would marry Bob Rosen?
Yeah, who else would? Okay.
Oh my.
Bob Rosen,
by the way,
it wasn't an insult.
Yeah.
By the way, he'll be on next week.
Who will be on next week?
Mr. Rosen.
So that's so there you go.
He's either going to be on or Ron Delvaux's going to take him to lunch.
Maybe we can get his bride on if he's not available. So
the guy I really like to see on here is the guy that wrote Interbank Incident. He did a couple of games for Spectral Associates. He's kind of active.
Okay.
I saw him on Facebook. I'll have to get Ron to contact him.
Yeah, get Ron to take him to lunch.
Yeah.
There was 3 people involved with the Interbank Incidents. Which one are you talking about?
Now I'd have to look at the name.
Mr. Incident?
Yeah, Mr. Incident.
Mr. Bank.
I think like E.T. Gatlin was the graphics guy there.
Yeah, it was Gatlin.
Was it Bank or Incident?
Gatlin gun.
It was his Inter.
Good. So that was nice. It was nice having Marty on. I only know of him through you guys, so he's been infamous to me between hearing Rick and Steve Bjork and a few people talk about him. So
that was cool to see.
Liquid. The other guys I would see would be Kevin Darling and Chris Burke.
I've been trying to get a hold of Kevin Darling, and he hasn't responded to any of my queries.
Only if we're gonna have Brother Jeremy sing to him.
Yeah.
and Steve Bjork, I forgot to mention during the interview, but you actually had him on your podcast, the audio only Skype podcast we did back around mid 2000s, because Marty was one of our guests on that at one time.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember back then, but my memory's kind of foggy.
Do you have any of those
We're going
recordings?
back a couple of decades almost.
Yeah, those out there somewhere.
Yeah,
in the interwebs.
Do you still have them on your site there, Steve, anywhere? Because we did record them. We interviewed Nick, we interviewed Marty, we interviewed a couple people.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look for that stuff and like that. I've got some old drives I've got to take a look at that have stuff, images on there. I got a video that I put together for a CoCo Fest, which it zoomed in onto a CoCo and went through as if it was going through the circuits, and then kind of throwed up all my different games. And people keep requesting that one, and I've got to find that video.
Oh, that sounds cool. Yeah,
it does.
Yeah, it had a great orchestra on it and everything else. But now there's a hard drive that's got that and the audio and that you're talking about there, Curtis, and
Yeah, there was we had that regular scheduled audio only chat we did on, I can't remember, it was Thursday nights or Wednesday nights, where it was. Nick Marentes, you probably remember it too because you were on it.
Was I? Oh, okay. I'm foggy.
Everybody's memory started to go.
Was this hosted like on a website or something?
No, it was on Skype, and the recordings of it were hosted for a while. We didn't do a lot of them. I think there was maybe half a dozen to a dozen episodes or something. I can't
Would the Wayback Machine point to it?
Might.
Maybe.
Did the show
So
have a name?
That sounds like the precursor to CoCoTALK, because CoCoTALK started as a Skype call too. So yeah.
Yeah, this was audio only. This was before video was common.
Yeah, that's still pretty cool though. Just getting a group of people together talking CoCo. Yeah.
You gonna do the outro?
No, I'm gonna press the button.
Push the button, Frank.
We're gonna press the button, Frank. So thank you guys all for being here. Thank you everybody for watching, and long live the CoCo. And we'll do this again, same time, same channel. Yeah, we're gonna.
Just a sec before you do.
Yes.
I just found the link.
You found the link.
Cool.
L.
Throw it
Curtis
into YouTube.
CoCo4.com podcast/CoCo.
Yep, podcast number 5. Marty takes a sponge bath.
Podcast number 6. It's all done in hardware. Marty takes a sponge bath. Podcast number 5. Yeah. Nick gets blown away. That's podcast
I
number
remember
4.
that.
Yeah. Conference number 3. Conference number 2. I'm going to have to want to listen to these.
Man, I have too much content to listen to on my drive to work.
Yeah. So who is this?
I don't
Your
need
site,
more.
Steve Bjork, at CoCo4.com?
Yeah, I guess I do. Yeah, it's one of them that I run.
This is from 2010. Okay, in October of 2010, Aaron Wolf, Todd Wallace, and I decide to hold a monthly color computer conference in the internet. I want to hear these. Wow.
Yeah, there's some pretty interesting stuff in those.
Huh. Very cool.
There's something for the show notes.
There you go. All right. CoCo4.com. Check it out. That was one of the articles I was going to, that's one of the questions. Hey, has anybody ever considered making a CoCo4 in hardware?
Well,
I saw that. I'm like, it's been done.
Just real fast about the stuff. CoCo4 is missing a bunch of stuff, so you definitely want to do a Wayback Machine or something like that.
Okay.
I don't think the actual CoCo4.com has that information up there anymore.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Well, the link that Curtis just posted, it's got me a page, but I haven't tried the individual links from that page.
I just tried podcast 6. It plays Steve Bjork's voice is the first thing you hear when you click on it.
Yeah.
So is it CoCo4.com/
He just put
no,
the link.
if you go to CoCo4.com, you will not find it. You have to go through us,
Yeah, I Google searched
yeah,
specifically for it. So
because
I'll put it
I
in the
removed
Zoom
a bunch
chat,
of
too.
pages on there.
yeah, it's kind of like a broken, or not broken, but a hidden link at this point.
Exactly.
Okay. So it's in the YouTube chat. I'll put it in the Zoom chat too. So just so
Well,
you guys
you know what we could always do is if I can get those files
Put it-
off the server, I can give them to Steve, and then Steve can run some sort of automatic program that just puts a wavy line up, and he can make a podcast out of it. Wouldn't take much effort at all to do that.
All right, guys. We're gonna press the button on that one.
Press the button.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all for being here.
Have
Bye.
a good night.
Night.
Take care.
Good night,
Yeah.
all.
This is the sound of me hanging up now in 3
Press
Mississippi.
button.
Push the button,
2
Frank.
Good night.
Night, Gracie.
Good night.